fireworks there, Pittsburgh. Let's relax a little
Cardinals
bit.
do it when Ryan Helsley comes out of the bullpen, so come on now.
There's more pyrotechnics as opposed to the fireworks. Feel like we could save some of those fireworks.
Aren't those the same thing?
A win that's not 2-1, Pittsburgh. Let's relax a little bit, all right?
I mean,
that audio courtesy of the Pirates TV network.
Yeah. Someone doesn't even know how to score a run.
Another close loss for your Cardinals. Alex, I'm getting pretty sick of this.
Really? It's July 23rd, and you're getting sick of it?
Yeah, because the games are feeling more and more important as we get closer to the deadline. Like, it's weird the way that the baseball season works. At the beginning of the year, everything feels like it's the most important thing in the world, and then, like, it starts to decrease in value. They're all the same. Every win is technically the same value, right? But it feels bigger at the beginning of the season. Then you go to that little bit of a lull, especially like late May, early June, and then they start to rise back up as you get closer to the deadline, and people are trying to fight for positioning going into the deadline to determine what are we going to get? Where are we going to be at the deadline? So these wins feel increasingly more and more important as you get closer to the deadline. And then after the deadline, it goes back down a little bit, and then it increases again as you get into like mid-September and you're fighting for playoff positioning. That one felt important. That one sucked. Losing that game 2-1, I understand you're going up against a really good pitcher. But, man, this offense has got to get it going. You saw 2 games over the weekend where you're going up against pitchers for Atlanta that will not be starting postseason games. Whether Atlanta makes it, like, they're not going to be a part of their playoff rotation. You saw 1 game over the weekend against a playoff pitcher that will be a part of their rotation. And that was Charlie Morton. What'd you do against him? You lose 3-2 in 10 innings. In this game against Pittsburgh last night, again, a playoff caliber starter in Mitch Keller. Really good starter. I'm not taking anything away from him, and he was good last night. You've got to be able to put up more than 1 run in that game, man. You have to. And this has become a consistent theme for the Cardinals. This offense is not giving them a chance, even when somebody like Andre Pallante gives you everything you could possibly ask for him last night. So we'll get into the bullpen decision, going with John King over JoJo Romero. We can talk about that stuff. But, man, ultimately, this comes down to something that is very simple. On Saturday morning, they lost 3-2 because their offense failed to produce runs. Last night, you lost 2-1 because your offense failed to produce enough runs to be able to consistently win in this league. And until that changes, man, nothing about the starting rotation or what they do at the deadline, that's not going to matter. They've got to get the offense going.
Yeah, they do. And if there's one reason why I can't buy into this team, it's the offense. I've said it from day one of the regular season. I don't trust an offense in the postseason that has a track record of not performing against the top-level pitchers. And to me, what was so massive about this series against the Pirates was, of course, you've got the Pirates that are right on your heels in the standings, but more so than anything, you're getting a playoff look of what a 3-game wildcard series would look like against this type of team. You're seeing a Mitch Keller and then a Paul Skeens. Those are 2 guys that you're going to see in the first 2 games of a legit wildcard series. And guess what? I don't believe in this team to find a way to beat a Mitch Keller and a Paul Skeens. 2 months ago or a month ago, I believed it because they were doing it. They were doing it against Boston's pitching. They were doing it against Baltimore's pitching. And I was like, damn, even Philadelphia, they made the games competitive.
Yeah, they've done this.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's so frustrating is they have shown an ability to hit good pitching. But when we talked about it, I think it was like mid-June, they go on that run and they're doing it against good pitchers against them. And for whatever reason, man, they're just not finding ways to do that right now. It's a small sample size, I understand, but right now all these games feel so important and they're not getting it done.
These are the types of series, though, that you lose and you don't go anywhere in the playoffs, and it just feels like the Cardinals are always stuck in the mud. Like if you go down this batting order, Winn and Burleson have no experience in the playoffs, so that's an unknown for me. Those guys could be superheroes and we don't know. Contreras has been there before. Donovan's been there before and struggled, although small sample size. Arenado, Nootbaar, Goldschmidt, Gorman, they've all done this, and you have not seen the success in the postseason. So when they struggle against these types of pitchers, and look, July 23rd to me, playoff baseball started after the All-Star break. That's what it always feels like. Other teams just get into playoff mode, and then once you exit the trade deadline, then it's real playoff mode. But if you can't find a way to score more than 1 run against Mitch Keller or more than 2 runs against Charlie Morton, and what you do tonight against Paul Skeens, what'd you say, T-Bone? The betting odds right now?
70% of bets are on over 7.5 strikeouts.
This Cardinals offense, and again, you could go out there and trade for Nathan Eovaldi and Max Scherzer, and it would be an awesome move. But I still wouldn't buy into this offense.
It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're not going to be able to score runs. And like those betting odds, that feels about right. But that's about Paul Skeens as much as it is the Cardinals' offense. The Cardinals' offensive issues are not due to striking out. That's not their problem.
Their issue is a lack of slug.
Yes.
Because if I told you last night, you're going to see Mitch Keller for 6 innings, you're going to see Aroldis Chapman for an inning, and you're going to see arguably one of the best closers in baseball, David Bednar, tomorrow or last night, and I said you're going to get 7 hits, your first thought would be, hey, that's pretty good.
That's fine.
Problem is there's 1 extra base hit. And that 1 extra base hit, what was it?
Scored you with a run.
It was your 1 run.
Yep.
You've got to slug. And this is what it comes down to. This is why I've said, what do teams do in October that win them baseball games from an offensive standpoint? They slug. And I get it. Look, those guys are good. What it comes down to is, do you take advantage of your mistake and not just get a single? You know, Goldie had 2 hits last night. Didn't do any damage. No damage. 2 singles. You know what that does? Nothing. Gets a guy on base, but that's fun and dandy.
It's too hard to put together consistent at-bats, consistent hits against a guy like Mitch Keller.
Exactly.
It's just too hard. And Paul Skeens going to be even harder tonight. If you're going to score runs across the board against these kinds of pitchers, you have to be able to do so in bunches, and that means doubles, triples, homers. You got to get extra bases. If you get on base, you're stealing second. To be able to get that guy into scoring position, they just didn't have that enough last night. On the season, the Cardinals are 20th in Major League Baseball in slugging percentage. The teams that are behind them include the Angels, the Rangers, the Blue Jays, the Cubs, the Rays, Washington, Pittsburgh, who you saw last night. That offense is not good enough to do much in the postseason. Their pitching is. And I'm talking about the entirety of their staff, because their bullpen rocks. Back into that pen is as good as any that you'll see in Major League Baseball. Seattle, Miami, Chicago. Those are the teams that are behind the Cardinals right now in slugging percentage. You know what all of those teams have in common? They ain't doing nothing in the postseason this year.
Or they're
nothing.
sellers.
Yeah. The teams right in front of them include Cincinnati, Oakland, Detroit, San Francisco. You know what all of those teams have in common? Nothing. They're not expected to do anything of meaning this year. You've got to get that slugging percentage up. And the problem is, Alex, I don't know how you do it. I don't know. I like this team. I think this team is better than a lot of people have given it credit for. Part of that is because of the way that they started the season. A lot of it is what happened last year. Some of it is their run differential. Just hard to buy into a team that still has a negative run differential, that plays as many close games as they do, because eventually, just like last night, it could trend in the other direction, similar to what happened last year with the Marlins. So I get all of the criticism of the 2024 Cardinals. But so much of this comes back to, man, they were expecting one thing from Goldie and Arenado. They've got another. And even if that happened, they were expecting one thing from Jordan Walker and got nothing. And a lot of the Cardinals' issues right now come back to, not just for right now, but for the future, what is Jordan Walker going to be for them long term? Because I don't think you can fix this offense, quote unquote, with a deadline move. You can bring in Mark Hanna, you can bring in Justin Turner, you can bring in Lane Thomas, you could bring in one of these guys that are going to come in and help you a little bit against left-handed pitching. That can help. But last night, what happened against them, that's not fixed by any of those guys that we just talked about. That's fixed by Goldie and Arenado figuring it out. That's fixed by Jordan Walker becoming the player that we expected him to be. That's what needs to happen for the Cardinals, and I don't know how any of us can reasonably expect that to take place now. In the offseason, we can talk about what they can do, and I don't think Goldie's going to be back next year. That's my current anticipation. Walker's probably going to be a part of your roster on opening day of next year. How much does that fix? I don't know, man. That so much of the Cardinals' future and present comes back to, what is Jordan Walker going to be for them?
Yeah, I mean, you don't fix it right now. Right now, it's you cross your fingers and hope that your offense finds ways to just come through in short sample sizes so you can win a series when you get there. Big picture, I think, is the crossroads moment for the Cardinals, because it really comes down to your belief in Jordan Walker. It comes down to what he does for the rest of the season in AAA, and if he gets a sniff back at the majors at the end of this season. And then you got to decide in the offseason, was what just took place with Jordan Walker an anomaly, and we feel like we've broken through and now we're ready to get back to the majors and start the work process? Or look at it and say, I don't know if Jordan Walker's ever going to hit the potential we think, and we might need to make a significant change to bring in another outfield right-handed big bat, because you've got Winn, you've got Contreras, Arenado is not going to be himself, I don't believe. Goldschmidt is gone. You're missing one more bat, and that bat is going to come in an outfield position. it's either Jordan Walker or it's somebody from the outside.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Somebody on the text line sends in from the 314. Oh my goodness, you guys are overreacting so much right now. Another one. Guys, didn't the Cardinals just win 2 out of 3 from Atlanta? Another one from the 314. I'm not mad at yesterday's loss. Keller's a good pitcher. Cardinals have hit him well in the past. He was due to pitch well against the Cardinals. I don't think we're overreacting because we're talking about the Cardinals in what could be a contender status. If you just want to talk about the Cardinals of getting to the playoffs, I still believe they're going to get there. I think that the Cardinals have a good enough team to be able to get to October. What we're talking about right now is what happens when you get there. And these are the kinds of pitchers that you'll see in the month of October. And if the Cardinals are going to have any chance of getting through it, they've got to be better than they were last night. And tonight you're going to have another opportunity to see that going up against Paul Skeens. Nobody hits him well. It's going to be a tough task. I'm not saying that it's something that you should expect them to go out and put 12 runs up on the board against Skeens. It's unlikely. Can you scratch across 3? Because teams have done that. Let's see if the Cardinals are capable of it. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we got to talk about what the hell Joe Burrow is doing right now. Have you guys seen this?
Yeah, he's bringing back Slim Shady from the early 2000s.
I officially have dropped him on my board of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and I'll tell you why coming up in 15 minutes. But coming up next, I like Ollie Marmol. I think he's had a better year than a lot of people are willing to give him credit for. I'm not buying what he's selling about what he decided to do last night. We'll tell you about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care, making people comfortable since 1926. And I love the work that Classic Air Care has done with our HVAC system, making sure that it's up to standards and getting us through the hot summer or the cold winter. And here's the thing. I've always been a part of the maintenance program since I've owned a house back in 2016. And what that is every year in the spring before I flip my air on consistently, I have them come out. Same in the fall before I flip my heater on, and they're checking it out. They're cleaning it. They're taking care of it. Now, my HVAC system finally RIP'd a few weeks ago, but prior to that, they were taking care of a 28-year-old unit for 3 years, a 27-year-old unit for 3 more years, and keeping it lasting for us. So make sure you give Classic Air Care a call. Check out the maintenance program, and don't just believe me. You could see the hundreds of positive reviews, a 4.8 rating up on Classic Air Care's Google reviews, talking about their excellent customer service, their knowledgeable technicians, and their timeliness, which I think is always important when it comes to an HVAC system. Give them a call today. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, or you could schedule online at classicaircare.com.
All right, with Alex and T-Bone on BK, so the Cardinals made a big decision last night. They were in a 1-1 game, and they're in the late innings. And first, they had to go to Chris Roycroft. That's the exact spot that they want to upgrade.
What?
7th inning.
That's circle of trust, Chris Roycroft.
Big
to you,
situation. I like Chris Roycroft. If he's the last guy in your bullpen, that kind of stuff, that's pretty nice. Here I've had on the Memphis shuttle going up and down. I like what they're doing with him. It makes a lot of sense. That's a spot you'd like to upgrade. If you have to go to Roycroft in a high leverage spot like that in the postseason, for example, because you used your guys the last couple of days, I'd like to see them improve there. Maybe that's Riley O'Brien. Maybe that's somebody that you get at the deadline. Either way, you need two improvements. One, the current spot that they're just not utilizing in their bullpen with Giovanni Gallegos.
They got 2 of those.
That guy might as well not exist.
We've seen Riley O'Brien throw like 6 pitches, and he almost took a dude's head off. I don't know if I can rely on that.
He threw 97 last night and
walked
got out
2.
of the inning. Don't worry about that. He got a strikeout as well.
You see how he hides the lead?
Yeah.
He buries the lead. Riley
Can't hide
O'Brien
that stuff from me.
is throwing 97, and he gets out of an inning? Like,
Hey, listen,
what else
I
do you
liked my
want?
idea about it. He threw 97, got the save with a strikeout. Which one do you like, that version or T-Bone's version where he walks 2?
I'll take the 2 walks.
Mine,
And
it's unrealistic.
how many guys did he almost bullet in the head with his
Fine.
fastball?
Everything's fine. But the real decision there was when they went to John King. And Ollie Marmol explained his decision after the game. If you didn't see it, if you weren't watching last night, and you're like, this is a boring game. There's no offense being played. Totally fair.
Not fair.
They go into...
Easy, Grandpa.
Love pitching.
Let me a pitching duel on July 23rd.
They're in the 8th inning, and you've got Reynolds, Cruz, and Gonzalez coming up with Tellez potentially facing whoever you bring in that inning as well, lefty bat. You were going to bring in a lefty in that situation, and your choices were Jojo Romero, John King, or Matthew Liberatore. Typically, you'd expect him to go to Jojo in that spot. He's been good for them so far this year. But lately, it's been a bit of a struggle, and they decided to go with John King there, not the guy that you see on CNN, but the guy that's coming out of the Cardinals bullpen. Here's why Ollie said he went to John King in that spot.
We talked through the game earlier today, and it played out exactly as we talked through it, as far as Roycroft getting that lane all the way through McCutcheon, and then if we were leading off an inning at Reynolds, you look at the history there. The last couple times JoJo's faced Reynolds, it's loud contact. The Cruz walk off. They've taken some good swings off of JoJo, so giving them a different look there with King. Both Reynolds and Cruz are high ground ball guys, so I'll take my shot there. He got ground balls. They were just not at people until the Hayes one there for the double play, but he did his job. Unfortunately, sometimes his contact's not going to be at people.
When they put the ball in play, it may not go to people. This is why we like swing and miss, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what John King
What do you guys think
has,
about
though.
that explanation?
John King has swing and miss.
He does not. What did you guys think about that decision last night?
You want to go first?
No, I'm going to let you go first.
I hated it, to be honest with you. I didn't like it. I didn't think it made sense, and I really didn't buy what I heard post-game from Ollie Marmol, or Oliver, as people call him.
Whoa.
He's lying.
Yeah.
Well, of course he's lying.
That's not why he did that.
We talked through the scenario before the game, and it played out perfectly. That's a lie in itself.
Can I read you something? This is from Ollie Marmol. These are his words.
Okay.
Did he text you?
No, this is from 2022, I believe. He talked to Katie Wu about pitcher versus hitter numbers. Said Merrifield against Wickren is 0 for 12. But when you look at the videos, there were some of them that were caught on the track. 2 of them were line drives to short. 12 at-bats. How meaningful is that really? Because with a little better ball placement, he's 5 for 12 with 3 doubles. So how are you feeling about that matchup? When you look at the algorithmic suggestions of matchups, it'll give you a pretty good idea of what the outcome should be over time. But then you also start looking at the swing plane. You look at how it matches up against style of fastball, how it works against his changeup. Is that really the path where he's going to have his success? Is there a better matchup there? So the 0 for 12, do you look at it, weigh it, and put that into the equation? Sure. Is it the determining factor? The answer there is no. You can get fooled by looking at a sheet and going, oh, this guy's 0 for 4 against him, until he's not. Is it really meaningful if someone is 0 for 4 against somebody? I lean towards no. So is it really meaningful if the guy took 2 good at-bats against him? For me, I lean towards no. I think he's lying to you. I think what Ollie Marmol is doing there, and this is his job, I'm not telling you that he's doing this in a way that's like hindering the team, but I think he's protecting his player. I think the Cardinals have lost trust in JoJo Romero. I think that's what we're witnessing right now. And they're trying to figure out, okay, if we don't have JoJo in these spots, what can we do? Is John King capable of getting us through these situations where we've got a lane of lefties that we've got to navigate through because we want Matthew Liberatore, because they're doing this weird thing again on Wednesday where they're going to a bullpen game, even though they could just call up a minor league starter that they have ready to go, but they're not going to do that again because they are going to hold back some of their relievers to be able to use them on Wednesday. It drives me nuts, but whatever. Who's the lefty we can use? Okay, well, John King's going to be that guy. Cool. Because JoJo Romero has allowed 6 hits and a walk in his last 4 appearances. He has somehow not allowed a run despite that, despite giving up an OPS over 1,000 in his last 4 appearances. JoJo is not the same guy right now, and I can't explain why that is. It might be due to his changeup. He's lost all feel for that, it seems like. His fastball's not getting any swing and miss anymore because of that. He has appeared just 5 times since July 1st, guys. They are putting him under lock and key right now. They do not want to use JoJo Romero. They're terrified of what's going to happen when he enters a ball game, especially when it's that close. He's got to earn his way back into their circle of trust. That's why he didn't use him last night. He can tell you all this different stuff about, oh, look at the at-bats against him previously. That's hogwash. That's not why he did this. He's doing this because he doesn't trust JoJo Romero. And what that means, Alex, they need a lefty and a righty at the deadline.
Oh, crap.
What that's telling you is they don't have a lefty they trust in high-leverage situations, and they need to improve from the Chris Roycraft spot in their bullpen as well. They need 2 relievers right now. It can't just be the one. Or it's got to be a righty that's great against left-handed pitching, which basically means a closer, because those are the guys that are good in those spots.
Yeah, well, and that was, you asked what we thought of his comments. That was my first thought. He's basically lying through his teeth saying we can't use JoJo Romero right now. And I get it, like he's lying because you don't want to call out JoJo and say that he's broken. But if that's the case, I mean, in a normal situation when you have a starting pitcher so you don't have to keep doing this bullpen game nonsense, you'd be talking about Matthew Liberatore in here. Like, that's what it felt like they were grooming Matthew Liberatore to be, a high-leverage lefty pitcher. But then this whole, well, we don't trust these guys in the minor leagues, and we can't go there, so we got to go to a bullpen game, which means Liberatore is going to be our starter for us. Well, now you've screwed the pooch in that one because you've been toying with this guy, and you don't have him in that constant role. And the problem with this is, if we're adding another thing to the to-do list at this trade deadline, maybe this is Chicken Little and the sky is falling, but things are falling apart at the seams.
I don't feel that way. Somebody else on the text line said, guys, if the move worked last night, you guys would be praising it instead of criticizing it. I'm not even criticizing the decision. I'm not as far with T-Bone on this one. I don't necessarily have an issue going to John King there over JoJo Romero because the numbers would dictate, hey, JoJo has not been good in a month now. So eventually, yeah, I'm going to flip the roles. I'm going to go to John King in these spots to find out, can he do it? I think the answer is no. He doesn't have the swing and miss stuff. I think his role is as a 5th or 6th inning bridge reliever to get you to your leverage guy. That's who John King is. The problem is you don't have a left-handed leverage reliever right now, so you got to try to push somebody else into that role. I don't blame them for going to John King there. They don't trust JoJo. What I'm disagreeing with is the explanation for it. I don't believe what Ollie Marmol's telling you. I don't believe that's why they did it. I think why they did it is because they don't trust JoJo, and that is the root of the issue, and that speaks to what this team needs to do at the deadline.
Yeah, and I think whether it was JoJo or even Liberatore, I think the problem for the Cardinals is, 1, they don't trust JoJo, and 2, they have to manage 2 days in advance because they're already planning a bullpen game. Like, Liberatore's not good against righties, but there's a chance you could argue there was a lane there yesterday for Liberatore in that spot, a guy that we've seen have success against some of the best offenses in baseball. Look back to that Phillies series when he mowed through Schwarber and Harper. I think that's a lane for Matthew Liberatore. I don't think you want guys putting the ball in play in that situation in the 8th inning in the heart of their order. The other problem, too, and this is one thing that it's hard to say because the Cardinals are in such close games, because they're not going to fix JoJo Romero if he's not pitching. It's just that simple. Mm-hmm. JoJo, you said 5 games. You know who else they haven't been able to fix? Gio. They're not putting. They've got 2 spots in their bullpen right now that might as well just be a waste of a roster spot. Yeah. That's the way they're utilizing it.
Also hindering their ability to go to other guys. Like,
exactly.
I think it's time to call up some of these guys from AAA, man. And if that means putting them into the bull, like Gordon Graceffo, do they trust him as a starter? Because it sure seems like the answer to that is no long term. And if that's going to be the case, why not find out what you have in him, dude? Why not just see what it looks like coming out of the bullpen? They toyed with this idea 2 years ago, I think. 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago when they were in contention down the stretch, they were going to call him up from like at that point either high A or double A. I can't remember where he was at the time.
Just got into double A because I saw him pitch in double A.
Yeah, well, why not do it? Like, see what he can give you. Kloffenstein, I liked what we saw. It's like a comet going across the sky. you saw, you're like, oh, that was interesting.
And it's like
he's
a huge
gone.
spot, the Rickwood Field game, 8th inning. You're only up like 1 or 2.
You never see him again. Guys, Gio is not going to be a part of this team's plans. Like, I'm very confident a week from now, Gio's not on the Cardinals. And if he is, something's probably gone awry for them between now and then. He's not a guy they trust. They don't want him to be a part of anything they're doing in high leverage spots. They don't even really trust him in low leverage spot at this point. He's an innings eater for them in the bullpen. He's your long reliever currently. That's the role that he's been maintaining for them. So go ahead and find, if you're going to have him in that role, I would just rather have one of these other young guys in that role. And then last night, see what they look like in that spot. Are they going to get hit by the lefties? Possibly. But do I trust John King in that spot? Absolutely not. Do they trust Jojo Romero in that spot? Clearly not. It just, some of the decisions with the roster lately have been really puzzling. And as we continue getting in these spots where every spot on the roster is magnified because they're playing so many close games, you need to have the maximum output from those guys. And that means probably, in my opinion, having a guy like Ivan Herrera, who's a really good right-handed hitter, on your bench. And is that getting the most out of him right now? Is that allowing him to become the full potential of who he's going to be? No, but right now you need him. Right now you need that bat because your offense is struggling. And there have been multiple spots already in the first week coming out of the All-Star break where having him would have helped you. Last night would have helped you. Against the Atlanta Braves in that game that went to the 10th inning would have helped you to have him on the roster because then you could have more easily been able to pinch hit for Pedro, or pinch hit and pinch run, honestly, for Pedro Baez in the 9th and then in the 10th inning. It's hurting them. It's hurting them the way that they're handling their roster. I'm not telling you that the sky is falling. I don't feel that way, but it's okay to be critical of the Cardinals when they're doing things that are not working. They're doing things that do not make sense. Some of the stuff right now just doesn't make a lot of sense. And yet, I still think they're going to make the playoffs. I think this is a pretty decent team, and I think they should be buying as we get closer to the trade deadline. He's Alex's T-Bone. I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario.
Tara Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to the Pirates yesterday 2-1, and Game 2 of their three-game set is tonight. 5:40 will be first pitch. Lance Lynn will be on the mound for St. Louis, and he'll be going up against Paul Skeens, who gets the start for Pittsburgh. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Along with Alex and T-Bone on BK. All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN. We got to talk about my guy, Joe. Not talking about Biden. Talking about Joe Burrow. Oh. What is going on, boys? What is going on with my guy, Joe Burrow? Is it Cody Rhodes? That's the wrestler that looks like this? Mm-hmm. If you haven't seen the newest picture, he's at camp for the Bengals, and he's got his hair bleached blonde. And it's in Alex's new buzz cut form. You guys probably haven't seen it because he's been wearing the girl dad hat.
I don't have a buzz cut.
You don't have a buzz cut?
Growing my hair back out.
We're growing it back out.
What? You think I just like...
Wife's still a little busy?
Huh?
Wife's still a little busy?
Yeah.
No time for a haircut lately?
Yeah.
So, this is terrible. I had Joe Burrow as my number 2 quarterback in the NFL behind Patrick Mahomes because he's the only guy that scares me, really, when I'm watching my favorite team, the Chiefs, with Patrick Mahomes at the helm. Burrow's the only guy that's made him bleed in the postseason that's still playing other than Tom Brady, and that guy still gives me the shivers. I'm bumping him down. Well, he's like borderline top 5 now on my list of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Bleached his hair?
This is brutal. There's some character concerns here.
Man, somebody judges
Looks
a
like
book
a
by
midlife
their
crisis.
Cover. I think he just loves himself some Eminem and just buying into the new album.
Man. He's got to be better than this.
What do you mean?
Burrow had some good hair. What's happening here?
He's got to get an alter ego when he's on the field now. He's got to be Killer
Maybe
Joe.
This is what keeps him healthy this year.
Got to be Killer Joe.
Man,
he's going to go out there and he's G.I. Joe. He's going to go out there and take down the competition.
I don't know, man.
I don't mind. I think it looks good.
I think it looks
did
terrible.
This when I was like 9, and
did you?
Unfortunately, I did it at a cheaper place, and my hair, instead of coming out bleach blonde, looked like a checkerboard.
Oh.
Just like patches of blonde. So I don't mind it. Alter ego. I think Killer Joe's going to go out there on the prowl for the Cincinnati Bengals.
This is terrible.
I'm out, man.
It's got to be better than this, man. It's so bad. All right.
DK was scared of Joe Burrow on the field and now just scared of Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I'm just afraid of the guy.
You guys are concerned about bleached hair.
He's still the second
Meanwhile,
best
Patrick Mahomes is showing up to camp overweight.
You think we should do it as a
Stop
show?
It.
The three of us buzz cut and go blonde?
I'll do it if you guys do it.
I had the frosted tips back in the day. I'm sure you did.
You
I
should
tried
go
to
back
do
to
the
that.
frosted tips, and it came back to the checkerboard.
Yeah, I was just a leopard. That's all it ended up being.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of news as well from Chiefs camp, by the way. Kadarius Toney, quote, had some pretty good snaps at running back for the Chiefs last year. I think he enjoys doing that, end quote. That's what Andy Reid had to say about Toney earlier today. He then added that he's going to be doing more of that in 2024. What do you guys think?
Just
Kadarius
like
Toney, potential third down running back?
Just like Ollie lied through his teeth about JoJo Romero not being healthy, Andy Reid is lying through your teeth. Basically, we don't trust Kadarius Toney to line up on sides, so we have to put him in a spot that he will not be off sides
He
with.
needs like the Canadian football head start.
And so we can't cut him. We need him, so we're going to make him a running back. Cordell Patterson 2.0, only less strong.
I actually really like it.
I love this. I love this idea.
Because you know what it reminds me of? And he's not this good of a wide receiver, but he's got the potential speed to do it, of what the 49ers do when they line up Debo back there. I don't know if they still do that. They did that 2 years ago, I remember.
He's doing a little bit, yeah.
And like, I love that. On third down, third and long, why do you need a running back in there when you can go to a wide receiver and you can potentially just dump it off to him and let him go with his speed? I'm intrigued by the idea that they're doing.
Now, pass protection is going to be a problem for him. I'm going to go out on a limb and say...
My guess is he's not going to be doing pass protection.
Yeah. So that does limit you because it means that the defense knows he's not going to be in for pass pro anytime that he's in there, so he's just going to be going out on a route. But Kadarius Toney's talented, and he can do some stuff in the running game. Like, it's not a guarantee that he's going to be going out for a route. He's either going to be running the ball or going out for a route. There's just not the pass protection element of this. I love it, man. If you're going to have somebody that's going to try to take that Jerick McKinnon role this season, he's probably the most qualified player to do that.
Until he fumbles a ball and then goes back to the sideline.
The only reason I bring it up today is because, like, fantasy drafts are probably going to be starting up here pretty soon. This does add some value to him. If you're going to get later on into your draft, I probably wouldn't have considered Kadarius Toney prior to this news. I might now. Late round in my fantasy draft, got a deep bench. He's somebody that I would at least consider because there's some touchdown potential here. I think over the last 2 seasons, Jerick McKinnon has like 16 touchdowns for the Chiefs. If he's going to get that role, maybe there's upside for 5-7 touchdowns for Kadarius Toney in 2024.
Especially if you're in a PPR league, makes a bunch of sense too. I'm kind of with you with this. I would wait till like the last 2 rounds, and then depending where I'm at, maybe take a little flyer on him.
All right, so wanted to ask you about this. There's a piece that was up over on The Athletic about the NFL coaches that are facing the most pressure leading into 2024. Guys, for you, who would be at the top of that list? The top head coach in the NFL that's facing the most pressure heading into this season?
I think it's pretty obvious. Mike McCarthy.
I've got a different one.
Oh, really?
But McCarthy's second for me.
I mean, it's either McCarthy or McDermott. It's one of those two, but I would put McCarthy because of the situation Dallas is in right now. Like, if you don't win, you're going to probably lose Dak or CeeDee Lamb, and you're going to have to re-sign 1 or 2 of those guys. Your team is at a crossroads right now. If you don't win, you're gone, and that team looks different. So I would put Dallas Cowboy, Mike McCarthy at the front of it.
Number 1 for me was in the same division. It was Sirianni. I think Sirianni's gone if the Eagles flutter again this year.
Did you see the news that apparently the GM was the one that hired both coordinators?
When I saw that, that's why he immediately went up for number 1 on me. And they had the collapse last year because weren't they a playoff team and then they won like 1 game down the stretch?
They went like 9-1 to start.
Yeah, like he's the one that's got the most pressure for me because that team should be better. They've got a pretty good offense. We've seen it work before. Now, they do have to replace Kelsey, which is not an easy task, but they should be better than what they were last year. And Sirianni's the one that, if those reports are true that the GM hired his OC and defensive coordinator, he's already on thin ice.
I think those are some good ones. I've got 2 others. I think the one that I've...
Is one in the AFC South?
He is.
Is it Doug Peterson?
It is indeed. That was my second one.
He was
I think
third on my list.
I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, he's fired. I think it's time. You just paid Trevor Lawrence. You basically told everybody, we do not believe Trevor Lawrence is the problem here. We think he is part of the solution. And if you've got the quarterback in place and he's making a boatload of money, and Trevor Lawrence is now, you got to get the coach right. And if you don't think that he's the guy, and Indy's getting better, Houston's getting better, I think Tennessee has a chance to be better depending on what happens this year with the Will Levis. It seems like they're at least trending in the right direction. You can't be left behind in your own division. You've got to make sure that you've got the right coach there. So he's one. The guy that I think faces potentially the most pressure in all of football this year, though, is Robert Saleh.
I thought that might be.
I think Robert Saleh is a guy who it is like Super Bowl or bust type of aspirations there. Now, if you get to the AFC Championship game, you lose to Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, most likely Mahomes. It's the Chiefs Invitational every year. We know this. You could maybe count yourself in on bringing him back next season. That's it, though. It's got to reach that kind of level. You've got the quarterback now in place in Aaron Rodgers. It's go time if you're the New York Jets. And if he can't show it this year, it's over. You've got to go something else. I think it's clean house completely. Got to get a new GM, got to get a new head coach in there, try it one more time with Rodgers next season, and then that's it. Kind of see what happens there. But Saleh, to me, is the number 1 coach that came to mind for me.
Do you agree with Sean McDermott? Because I know Alex brought him up. I don't know how much pressure he's on. I think his seat's getting warm. I don't know if he's on the hot seat for me.
I think...
Because this is a retool year for them, essentially. And if you were going to fire the coach, I would have done it last year after they kind of flopped out.
I think so, too. I don't think he's on the same level as the guys we just mentioned. I think he's on the next level down, and Browns coach, why am I blanking on his name right now? Stefanski would be in that category for me as well. Eventually, I think they're going to want to win with Deshaun Watson, even though I don't think you're really capable of doing so. Him and, to me, McDermott would be in the same category.
Yeah.
Feeling pressure, not on the hot seat.
Another one for me, and he kind of falls into Stefanski role, is McDaniel in Miami. I think there's a lot left to still be seen.
I don't think there's any pressure on him yet, but I think it's kind of one of those things where it's like,
I think if it doesn't go well this year,
are you going to do something more here, or is this just kind of what it is?
I think this is the year where you probably start to get the sense of that seat might be warming, and it's not just the Miami sun.
It's well played.
Air 5.
That was well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Credit where it's due.
Give you a mediocre Air 5.
Coming up later on in the show today, we'll talk about the teams that are most set up for success over the next 3 seasons. ESPN ranked them from 1 to 32 in the NFL. They had the Chiefs at 1. The conversation gets pretty interesting behind them, though. We'll get into that later on in the show today. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers is coming up next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers. By the way, you can check us out on YouTube, as always, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. The studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. You can get involved in the graveyard chat over there as well. They're a little mad at me today, so jump on in. The water
What'd you
is
do, man?
indeed
Judge a
warm.
book by its cover?
No, I said that I think that Ollie is lying, and people were like, how do you know he's lying? And he got mad at me, and then they said, well, you guys talk about the same thing over and over. Yeah, that's because the Cardinals have been the same team over and over. So, it's the usual stuff. It's all good.
You know what was on yesterday? After the show every day, I podcast, and I put on our timestamps on YouTube for those that watch it later on. But I get to see the chat, I'm catching up on the chat as I'm going through. I was getting a lot of flack for reasons I'm not even sure why yesterday.
What happened, man?
Every time I skip ahead, it was like,
okay.
T-Bone doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on, man.
That's the job. That's what we're here for, is for people to be able to take out their frustrations on us. So that way they
Sounds like St. Louis is ready for hockey season.
Oh, boy. I don't know about all that.
Definitely not.
All right, let's get some of these questions from the 314. Guys, what are your thoughts on the Cardinals possibly trading Jordan Walker this year at the deadline? To me, it seems still too soon to give up on him. That's where I'm at as well. I would not be trading Jordan Walker at this year's deadline. I guess there are scenarios when I would consider it. I mean, if you're going to get like a star in return, a proven major league star right now, there's probably situations where I think it makes sense. I don't think those teams are trading you that player. And so, if we're dealing in realistic outcomes here, I don't think there's a scenario that will present itself in which I would be interested in trading Jordan Walker.
Yeah, I'm not trading him at the deadline because I don't think you're going to get anything that makes you better now and for the future with Jordan Walker. Offseason is where I think you have to consider it. And it's like what we talked about. I think there has to be a come-to-Jesus moment for everybody that looks at it and says, is Jordan Walker going to continue to develop, or is he going to remain who this is? And if so, we might need to trade it now.
Yeah, I'm not giving up on him, and I've said this before, and I still believe it. He's the kind of prospect that either lives up to his potential or flames out in your system. And that's why I wouldn't trade him. I wouldn't trade him now. I probably wouldn't trade him next year.
Yeah. I feel differently about this one than I did the Dylan Carlson situation. Like Carlson, I was willing to listen depending on what the offer was out there. I was at least willing to talk about it. This one, I think there's too much star potential. I felt like Carlson had just really good potential. Walker has legitimate all-star and potential MVP conversations potential. All right, from the 314, do you guys think that the line between success and failure for the Cardinals in 2024 is making it to the NLDS? If the Cardinals make it to the NLDS and lose, let's say, in 4 games, do you think that is considered to be a quote-unquote success for this team? I think there's a pretty good chance, yeah. That, to me, is probably the line. I don't think that you're feeling overwhelmingly successful. I feel like a legit success this year is NLCS.
That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I think
that the bar to be like, okay, you reached expectations this year is making it to the NLDS.
Yeah, you got to get past the
wild card
round.
would be disappointing.
You got to get past the wild card round for me to look at it as like, okay, well, at least you're trending in the other direction. I don't know if it's get to the NLCS, it's be competitive in the NLDS. It's don't get beaten in 3-4 straight games and look just uncompetitive. Like if you can make it competitive in an NLDS, I'll see. Because that looks like you're trending in the other direction, considering it's the first time you'd been there since 2019.
So I kind of agree that the bar probably should be NLDS. I think for a lot of Cardinals fans, it's get to the NLCS.
That's fair.
Because I think a lot of fans would look at the wild card. Like if they go, let's say they win the wild card series, I don't know, they beat the Braves, for example, who are beat up as hell. I think a lot of fans would go, A, you didn't beat a very good team, and B, the wild card round. Like a lot of people don't really look at the wild card playoff as a legitimate playoff series. Once you get to that best of 5, then you really have to prove yourself. In a 1-game wild card, which it used to be, and now a best of 3, anything can happen. 5 games is when you start to get kind of closer towards that, okay, now the better team can kind of prevail. That's why I think a lot of fans, it would be NLCS or it's a failure.
All right, from the 314, guys, Jim Bowden wrote that Eflin is likely to be traded, and that if a team will eat most of the $18 million owed next season, it wouldn't cost a lot in terms of prospects capital. That seems too good to be true for the Cardinals, right? Does feel very Cardinals-y. I think Eflin is a fine addition for the Cardinals. I think they should aim higher. I would rather have Fetty. I would rather have Kikuchi. I would rather have Scherzer. I would rather have Evaldi. All of those guys, to me, are above Zach Eflin. Bassett would reach above Eflin as well. So if you strike out on all of those different options, and I don't think you should. I think you should be able to get one of the names that I just mentioned. If you can't, for whatever reason, and the prices are just crazy, yeah, Eflin makes some sense for them.
Yeah, that's where I'm
He's
at,
more
too.
of like a 4, though, than a 2.
That's what I'm at, too. I don't think that does it. I don't think that moves the needle for me in terms of you're better than what you were prior to the trade deadline. I think you just added a piece that helps you. I would rather go much higher than that, but if that's all I can get, then I'll take it.
Here's another thing that I would add on that, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, T-Bone. I don't know if I want Eflin next year at $18 million. I think that's part of the calculus on this as well. Do I think Eflin makes you better? Probably. Do I think you could get something in the offseason that is better than Zach Eflin for $18 million? Probably. And that's where it gets difficult is, okay, so I'm giving up a prospect to marginally improve my roster this year, and the opportunity cost for next year is that $18 million that I would otherwise be able to earmark either for a bat that the Cardinals could probably use in the offseason or multiple bullpen arms, like 2 $9 million arms in the bullpen, or another rotation guy that is $18 million. I don't know, man. That's where it gets a little dicey to me. I would probably just rather get Kikuchi's on a 1-year deal.
I'm with you because I think when you look at Zach Eflin, if he was a 1-year deal, I'd still say like if they got him, it would feel like settling. You want to shoot higher. The problem for Eflin is that contract moving forward. Do I really want to pay $18 million for a slightly better Miles Michaelis? Which, by the way, I'm still paying Miles Michaelis next year. My answer would be no. That's why, like, I would say if they get him, that's fine. I would then look to probably flip him in the offseason. If he pitches well, I'd look to probably try and trade him rather than have him on his $18 million contract.
I think that's probably where I'm at as well. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Last thing here, this one comes from Twitter. Any interest in a package that would include Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bassett? Vlad, future Hall of Fame candidate, potentially in-house, fits the St. Louis style of acquisition, could then replace Goldie's salary as soon as next year. Great opportunity to make a serious push this year as well.
Sure, what am I giving up? That sounds like a lot.
You've probably given up Jordan Walker in that deal.
Yeah. And probably
He's
like
got control. He's more proven at the major league level. Walker has more control. Probably talking about like Walker plus pitching.
Yeah, probably my guess 3 of your top 10 prospects. Walker and 2 more. That'd be my guess.
Walker, Graceffo, Jerpy, something like that. Maybe. I don't know, but
I'm out.
like
I love Bassett. I think Guerrero's overrated. And I know he's having a great year. He's definitely no Hall of Famer. Like, let's relax, Twitter.
I'd have to consider it. I mean, he's got track record. And Jordan Walker right now, I mean, you're
Where's
going
he
off of
playing
hope.
for you. You immediately just putting him at first and saying, okay, Goldie, you're
Yeah.
You're done.
DH.
that's
Goldie or
probably
DH
would
until
be
the
your
end of the
DH.
season. And then at the end of the season, you walk, and Burleson's just my outfielder. And I work with him on being an outfielder. I mean, I'd have to consider it because Jordan Walker, you're still going off of hope he becomes what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is. And I got a first baseman. I just make Burleson my
The
outfielder.
part is you only have 1 year left of control.
Yeah.
You'd have to be pretty confident you're signing him long term.
Yeah.
And that's something
the part
that I
that I
don't
don't-
trust the Cardinals to be able to.
And I just don't trust. I don't want Guerrero on a long-term deal. I mean, look at his season by season. He had that one great year, which was, I think, 2020 or 2019. And then it just
21.
kind of slowly kind of went downhill. And then this is the first year he's back up and really playing
He
well.
plays every day. That's valuable. He's a good hitter, not necessarily a great hitter like you were expecting him to be. Consistently a 25 to 30 home run guy. Consistently a 90-plus RBI guy. Bats about 270 every year.
167 OPS plus, 133 OPS plus, 116 OPS plus, 135 OPS plus. And he's 25 years old.
Over the last 3 years, that's really good. The question is, like, his profile reminds me so much of Manny Machado, early in Manny Machado's career. So the question is, can he become that later on as well? Is there still more here? Can he consistently be a 35% above league average hitter?
I'm worried Jordan Walker can get to that.
It's a fair question. It's a totally reasonable question, but it all comes down to, can you get him for more than 1 year?
Yeah.
Because if you're only getting him for 1 year, I don't think that's something.
Yeah, the only way you do that deal is if you get a long-term extension in place before you make the trade.
All right, with Alex and T-Bone on BK, coming up next, a lot of the Cardinals' questions at the deadlines, in terms of controllable pitching, come down to, what is Andre Pallante's future here in St. Louis? Has he worked his way into the Cardinals' future plans? Talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario and Brandon Kiley, got to tell you about our friends over at Circa Sports. Alex, people should be downloading the Circa Sports app in Illinois. You can make all of your bets over there, but something else you can do for the football season, get involved in their two big contests out in Las Vegas. Circa Millions, $6 million in guaranteed prizes. You pick 5 teams against the spread each and every week. The winner is going to take home $1 million. That's the Circa Millions. What I love is the Circa Survivor. $10 million in guaranteed prizes to the winner or multiple winners, depending on how long people are able to last this season. You pick a team straight up each and every week, and if your team loses, you're out. If you keep on winning, you go throughout the entirety of the season. Alex, Circa makes it fun during this football season, and by fun, I mean they make you win a lot of money.
And that's the most fun you can have, so make sure you get involved with that right now. Also, download the app, check out their tight money line splits throughout the second half of baseball season, and those future bets the BK and I always talk about. That's how you bring in the most money, because Circa Sports is not limiting you based off of your winnings. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So Andre Pallante has been really impressive, man. Since taking over as a starter for the Cardinals in the rotation, he's been arguably your second best starting pitcher behind Sonny Gray. If you go by just ERA, he's right up there. And if you go by some of the stuff metrics that they have out there, he's actually performing better than what you might expect in that regard as well. So this comes from Derek Gould, Alex. After going to Class AAA Memphis to reinvent himself as a starter and workshop his pitches he could use to get right-handed batters out, Pallante has returned to become something other than the reliever that he was. He's the young pitcher that the Cardinals have been working to develop, end quote. I don't think that changes anything about what the Cardinals need to do this year at the trade deadline. Pallante's development has been really impressive, and also I think it's probably in their best outlook to not have him as a part of the rotation after August 1st. Not his fault, nothing he did wrong, but I think he probably goes back down to AAA, continues to work as a starter, so that way if they need to call somebody up, if there's any kind of an injury or anything, he's ready to go, he's lengthened out, ready for them. I think what this is doing is changing my outlook for the rotation next year. To me, Andre Pallante should be written in pen as one of your 5 starters going into the 2025 rotation. What has he done to open your eyes about what he is and what he can be, Alex?
I mean, for me, he's a permanent fixture into your rotation next year. And that's why my concern with Pallante right now isn't so much that he's going to get pushed out of the rotation once trade deadline passes and hopefully the Cardinals add something. My concern is they trade Pallante to go get that rotation help at the deadline, because this is a guy that's at least established himself as, you know, maybe he can be a 4 for you, but worst thing, he's going to be a 5. And, you know, he's going to be able to pitch for you. He's doing it. The durability is showcasing. This guy, for me, next season, I'm looking at Sonny Gray, Kyle Gibson, Miles Michaelis, and Andre Pallante as 4 of my rotation arms next year, no matter what. And then the hope is you acquire one at the trade deadline. Andre Pallante gives you what you did not have up until May 29th this season, and that's a insurance guy to fall back on and say, like, hey, if something happens, we've got the guy that can start for us. And now what this does is it lengthens your options in terms of rotation next year, so I don't have to go out and spend $13 million on a guy who can eat innings like Lance Lynn. I've got this dude under a reasonable contract who's going to be my number 5 at worst next year, and I can spend that money that I was going to waste on a starting pitcher to just get me through the season. Now I can spend it on something that absolutely helps me next season.
And that's the best benefit of this. If this is Andre Pallante, is now you've got a cost control arm that you don't have to go and, I don't want to say waste $15 to $20 million, but you can now use that to go improve the offense. It looks like it's going to need help this offseason. Or you can go and get another bullpen arm that could go in there and slot back there in high leverage situations. Now you don't have to continue to throw money at the starting rotation, which the Cardinals have had to do for the last couple of seasons. You've now got some cost control in Andre Pallante, and he could absolutely do what Lance Lynn can do, which is go 5 innings for 30 starts and cover like 150 innings and have like a 4 ERA. That's perfect. That's the perfect number for a starter. And you mentioned the idea of them trading him. I think he's, and it's going to sound weird to say this for a number 4 starter, I think he's become untouchable for the St. Louis Cardinals because he's the first in-house starter that they have developed, kind of by accident, but developed in how long that you
Dakota Hudson, I was thinking, was like, he's what
that wave.
he is what you thought Dakota Hudson was going to be.
And
Pretty much, yeah.
and he's looks sustainable. Like Hudson, it was always like, ooh, those walks. It feels like it can't really sustain
And
for
early on,
long
I thought
term.
the same thing was going to be true of Pallante, by the way.
And
he had some of those walk issues, and it seems like he's settled them down a little bit.
And all of the walks with Hudson, it's like we kept finding ways to get out of it. And now Pallante has settled that down, but even when Pallante gets into a jam, he finds a way to get out of it.
He also has more strikeout stuff
Yeah.
than what we saw previously out of a guy like Dakota Hudson. He is in that style of pitcher, though. He's heavy ground balls. People do not square him up well. If you're looking at like the barrel rate against Andre Pallante, he's given up 4 barrels. Four barreled balls since becoming a starter again. That's the best on the team, and there is no close second. Some of the other underlying metrics also really like Andre Pallante, despite the fact that typically this is not the profile of pitcher I would expect to grade out well with some of the underlying metrics, because he doesn't strike out a ton of batters. 3.4 ERA as a starter, best of anybody in the Cardinals rotation since becoming a starter. His fielding independent pitching is second behind only Sonny Gray. He has the best average exit velocity. People do not hit him hard ever. He has the lowest exit velocity as well. And then if you look at the barrel rate, lowest of anybody in your rotation. Like the stuff looks really good underneath the hood. And so we've got somebody that texted in and said, guys, I thought the same thing about Zach Thompson. I thought the same thing about Steven Matz. This is one of those things all over again. I don't feel that way because the upside is not very high here. You're not expecting Pallante to ever be anything more than a 4 or a 5. Like we were talking about this earlier today, T-Bone, and you look at the Rangers rotation from last year. Dane Dunning is a guy that just bought them time. You knew he was not going to be probably a significant part of their playoff rotation, and that was fine with the Rangers. They knew if we get to the deadline with Dunning as a part of our rotation, that bought us enough time to not have to spend $13 million on a veteran starter that could give us the same thing that Dunning is giving us. And that's what Pallante allows you to do. By having him as a part of your rotation, next year you don't have to bring back Lance Lynn. You don't have to sign the next version of Lance Lynn. Or, in our last segment, you don't have to trade for Zach Eflin, who's going to cost you $18 million, to give you the same effectiveness as Andre Pallante. Because you're always going to be wanting to upgrade from your 4 or your 5, most likely, going into the season, unless you're the Phillies. Unless you're the Mariners. Very few teams are in a situation where they feel really great about their 4 starter. The Cardinals would just be included in that group, but instead of having a veteran making $10+ million, they've got a guy that's making nothing in that spot in your rotation. That's the best case scenario to be in.
We always talk about how these other teams are successfully building, and to me, the way that you successfully build rosters is not spending $30 million on Steven Matz and Lance Lynn, who either are a liability when they take the mound or unavailable for you. It's going out there and finding an Andre Pallante who can pitch as a 4 for you or a 5 for you and spend that $30 million on other pieces that can help you in terms of bullpen, right-handed bats. If you find these cost-controlled pitchers, and what Pallante does is it sets you up very well for next season. Hypothetically, let's say they're able to acquire a Chris Bassett. So your 1 through 5 are set next season. Steven Matz is the 6th guy for you. If he's healthy, he's in your bullpen. And now you're talking about Matthews, Tinkens, Graceffo, these guys that are in Springfield and AAA as options for you as the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th guys. So now I don't have to pick up the option of Lance Lynn, and now I can spend that money on this right-handed bat that I've been missing all season.
And that rotation you're talking about in that scenario would be Sonny Gray, Chris Bassett, Miles Michaelis, Kyle Gibson, and Andre Pallante. Yeah. And then you've got Steven Matz working out of the bullpen who can start games if you need him to. And you've got all of those guys that you currently have at AAA, depending on what happens in the deadline.
And you're also putting Matthew Liberatore into a left-handed, high-leverage reliever role and not taking him out of it.
Somebody on the text line said, you guys are ready to get married after just one date. Come on, be real. I'm not getting married to Andre Pallante. What I'm saying is I'm ready to date Andre Pallante in this scenario if I'm the Cardinals, right? Like that.
I've been dating. I'm thinking about a ring. Like, this has been 2 months of him being the best pitcher on your team if you're going off of ERA.
But a ring would be an extension. That is getting married. What I'm saying is, no, let's take this year by year. Let's go through the arbitration process. Right now, he's in pre-arbitration. Like, he's not ARB eligible. I guess next year he'd be ARB eligible for nothing.
And that's like getting a goldfish.
Nothing. And he's not a free agent until 2029. This dude is under club control for a long time. He's going to be a part of this team. And so, yeah, like, let's play this thing out. He's going to make $1 million next year.
Let's buy a dog together is what I'm saying.
I'm saying let's
Here's the key to my house. Come back as much as you'd like.
You can have a toothbrush in the bathroom, and you can have a couple outfits sitting in my closet right now. That's where we're at with Andre Pallante. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. You're gonna leave a couple of sweaters overnight. Like, that's it. That's all you get. And then after the 2025 season, if things go well, then we can start talking a little bit more about the long-term thoughts of what that's going to be. And most likely, that's going to be some more expensive dates or going on vacations together. That's it.
Let's get a dog, and if it doesn't work out, I keep the dog, and you just leave. Clean break.
We're not marrying Andre Pallante. We're just doing the dating thing for like 5 years, and then when he wants more, he can go away.
I'll marry the damn guy for how cheap it's going to be, considering how much I've been spending on finding a guy that needs to be Andre Pallante for the last 4 years.
They've been going on first dates at like Capitol Grill for the last year and a half, and finally they just met somebody at a coffee shop, and the date went pretty well. They're like, all right, let's do this.
I'm done. Fine. Let's just do this. We'll make it work for as long as we need to. But, like, I'm done with this spending $17 million in free agency for 4 years of Steven Matz and not working out. I'm done with bringing in Lance Lynn, who's going to give me a 6 ERA on the season. I'm done with it.
Somebody said Andre Pallante is a Honda Accord, 100%. Andre Pallante is a lightly used Honda Accord that gets you from point A to point B, and you feel really good about it. It's safe. It's conservative. It's going to get you good gas mileage. Like, you're going to get to where you want to go with Andre Pallante as the number 5 starter in your rotation.
So we all are totally fine. In agreement, like, next year we're going to be doing long-distance dating because they're going to rely on Matz to be their 5, and Pallante will start the year in AAA?
Yeah, that's a Cardinals move.
It is such a Cardinals
That's a Cardinals move. Well, Steven Matz has come back stronger than ever, and he had a great offseason.
I think they've learned their work. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of stuff when it comes to the way that the Cardinals handle their pitching. I think they've learned their Steven Matz lesson. I think Steven Matz is a bullpen guy for them long term.
You know, when you get pre-mad at me, I don't believe that.
Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Better to forget it here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You give us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on BK and Ferrario. Guys, bet it or forget it. The Cardinals will trade for a veteran starting pitcher at this year's deadline who has another year of club control beyond this season.
I'm going to say bet it. I don't think they should go down the path of a rental unless that rental you have strong belief you can bring them back, which there are a lot of reasons why I don't think Jack Flaherty's coming in, but that's one of the main reasons for me. I think because of what we just said with Andre Pallante, you've got to find somebody at this deadline that you know is going to be in the rotation next year. So that's why I'm starting to really like the idea of Chris Bassett. I've always liked the idea of Eric Fetty, but I would much rather see the Cardinals, and I think they're going to go down this path so that off-season to-do list is already done with this acquisition.
I'm going to say bet it too, because I think it allows you to not pick up Lynn's option if you get a guy with term. If you don't, there's a scenario where you almost kind of probably need to bring back Lynn. So that way he can kind of fight with Steven Matz for that fifth rotation spot. If you get an arm that's got control like a Bassett, a Fetty, someone with another year, it's a lot easier to say we can walk away from Lynn and have Pallante be R5 and Matz be R6.
Eovaldi, Bassett, Fetty, Eflin, all of those guys feel very Cardinals-y, and that's not inherently bad. I think some of those would be really good moves at the deadline. Eovaldi, Bassett, and Fetty in particular. I think those are the most likely arms that the Cardinals are going to trade for this year. If you told me those four versus the field, I'd probably say those four, one of those four. So I'm going to bet it. I think that that's the route that they're going to go, as a guy that has term left, and that's because the pitchers that are available this year, man, the best ones are the ones that have a little bit of term remaining on their deal, whether it's 1 year or multiple year. And at least in the case of like Nathan Eovaldi, he's got an option. I don't know if he's going to pick it up or not, but it's a $20 million option that will
vest.
It'll vest if he has, I think it's like 55 more innings, and he's very likely to get there based on the number of innings.
I fancied myself on Chris Bassett. I think he's the one that I like the most right now because I don't think Max Scherzer's going to happen. I think as much as I like the idea of Nathan Eovaldi, man, Chris Bassett, I know he's 35, but Chris Bassett has been really good for the last 4 years. Bet it or forget it, guys. The Athletic is doing a list of, they're ranking all 32 teams in goaltending categories of current and future prospects and cap contracts. Bet it or forget it. Binnington and Hofer, the Blues tandem, is going to be in their top 10. So they're ranking them based off of current, future prospects, and cap contracts in terms of the Blues.
I'll say they're in the
NHL
middle 10.
goalies.
Not because that's where I would have them, but if I'm kind of like thinking through the way that they probably view Binnington's long-term deal at his age, I'm guessing they probably won't value him the way that we do locally. So I'll say forget it. I think they'll have him in the middle 10, tandem.
I'm curious where they'll rank this one, because you also have to, at least before, I read the article today of the bottom 10.
It's all contenders, by the way. Like almost all of the teams that are in the bottom 10 in goaltending over the next, 5 years?
Uh-huh.
It's like all of the teams that are contending for a cup.
Well, and the Blues, like we always talk Hofer and Binnington, but they've got two other guys that'll be in the AHL next year that are supposed to be pretty good. I'm betting this. I think they might be in the top 10 of just future scenarios of the Blues goaltending.
Yeah, I think I'm going to bet it because I think they'll get good value from Hofer being on a rookie kind of entry-level contract. Binnington's one I just don't know because we know Dom.
Well, it's not Dom, believe me. So that's
they're
why
going to use probably Dom's model.
They're using Jesse Granger, and down goes Brown, and then Scott Wheeler's doing the prospect.
Yeah,
I think they're doing a model behind it, though, no?
So if they're using a model, it would be Dom's.
Dom wasn't referenced in it.
I mean, if Dom's not involved, then I could see where they could make it. But I don't know. Still, some people are skeptical of the Benner numbers, which may drag them down. But I will bet that they will be top 10, like fringe top 10.
Yeah.
Guys, bet it or forget it. The Milwaukee Brewers will make the biggest deal at the trade deadline here in the NL Central.
The NL Central?
Yeah.
Forget it.
Forget it. I think it's going to be the Cardinals with the Pirates.
I don't think they believe in their team.
I saw someone say that they think they might go try and target Fetty.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. I still think the Pirates make some type of... I think the Pirates make some type of move for offense. I don't know who, I don't know how, but they seem like a team that could make a move for a big offensive player, and then the Cardinals are toying with Fetty or Bassett.
I think the Cardinals and the Brewers will both have a very similar deadline. I think the Cardinals are going to get more, though, like in terms of quantity. Like the Cardinals will get maybe a reliever and a bat and a starter, at least two of those three things. I think it's pretty likely that the Brewers get a starter, and that might be it. And I think that the starters will probably be in the same bid. Like if they get Fetty, the Cardinals get Bassett, that kind of a thing. So I think that the Cardinals will end up having the biggest, quote-unquote, deadline of any team in the Central Division. That doesn't mean I think they're going to have the biggest splash like of anybody in the National League, though. I think the Dodgers are going to have a big deadline.
Yeah.
And if
I get the sense that I still don't know if Crochet is going to get traded, but if he does, I think it ends up being to the Dodgers. And I think Robert might be in that deal.
Did you bring up Pete Alonso possibly getting traded this deadline?
Yeah.
In the office? If the Pirates go big, that would be a Pete Alonso move.
That'd be great.
That would be the Pete Alonso move to bring in that offense, which they'd become a very dangerous team if they could pull it off.
I'd like to see them target Randy Arozarena.
Yeah, that's
Make
another
a ton
really
of
good
sense
one.
for them. I think what they're going to do is they're going to go after Chisholm, and they're going to live to regret it, just like they lived to regret the Archer trade.
I would not do that.
I wouldn't either. I think Chisholm's overrated.
I think he's vastly over. He's like a barely above league average hitter for his career.
Yeah.
He's a solid defender, but like now he's probably going to be playing second base wherever he ends up going. That is not the move that I would be making if I'm the Pirates. I think there are some really intriguing options for them. That is not one of them. I don't know that they'll do it because it's in the division, but like a Cody Bellinger be an interesting move
really good one
for a team like the Pirates. Probably making too much money for them, but if they included a better prospect, the Cubs would probably eat some of that deal. Get somebody that could really help you. Those are kinds of things that I would be interested in. Tommy Pham, by the way, would make a lot of sense for them. He could help them.
Yeah.
They should get like 2 or 3 bats. They should do what the Braves did in 2021 and just, hey, attack this thing with
Rebuild their
quantity.
outfield.
Yeah. You probably could.
That's how you give it the upper hand.
Canna and Pham, and now your outfield could be, I don't know, have they been playing Reynolds in the outfield? What did he play yesterday?
Yeah.
I don't even remember. But you could put Reynolds in the outfield along with Canna and Pham, and now you're really cooking.
That would give them the upper hand over the Cardinals because it's basically the same offense right now for both of those teams. And if you give more offense there, and the Cardinals are just going off of what they have.
Get a platoon bat for Tellez. Bring in somebody like a
the guy that just got cut from Seattle.
Sure, Ty France or Bell from the Miami Marlins. Yeah. He could be an interesting option there too.
But I might root for the Pirates at the deadline.
Dude, Pirates are a fun team.
They're a team that could do something where they just add a bunch of names. You're like, do they add anybody that really changes their outlook? But then you think about it in the whole, like, man.
They're going to be fascinating in the offseason.
Totally
That's
agree.
what they do. I hope they learn from what the Cubs and Reds did not do.
All right, from the 636, guys, bet it or forget it. The Cardinals trade Gorman in a package for Brent Rooker or another right-handed bat, and Donovan moves to second base. I think people are vastly underrating how much it's going to take to get Brent Rooker, dude.
If this was the offseason, I would probably look more into it. I don't think you could do that move at the trade deadline. I mean,
I'm forgetting about it.
I don't know much about Brent Rooker.
Dude, big right-handed bat, strikes out 35% of the time, but hits the crap out
Oakland.
of it.
He's
No,
a
one
stud.
position.
He's a DH.
Sorry.
It's a DH for you. Yeah, I mean, it would make sense, but I just don't know if you can trade Gorman at the deadline. As much as I like that guy, I mean, just looking at his numbers.
The pop that you'd be missing from
I just feel like
Gorman.
you need to go bigger with Gorman.
Dude, I think people are underestimating how good Brent Rooker is. Brent Rooker's a really good bat.
Can't blame me for
though. He's 29. He's a classic A's player.
Can't blame me for not knowing much about an Oakland A's player.
You're not watching them on your free time?
I know Masyn Miller, and that's about it.
You know, I don't blame you. I'll forget it, too. I don't think you make that move at the deadline. If they wanted to consider that in the offseason, I'm here for it. I'd be willing to give a package, get a right-handed bat, because they're going to have to replace the production that the A didn't get from Goldie and B is coming off of the books next offseason.
I mean, Rooker would be a really good move. If they could get
the reason they won't do it,
great.
though, is the same reason. Herrera is not here, and they've said this publicly. They do not like guys that cannot play the field unless they're Carpenter and can be a leader.
I wonder if Rooker would be the exception to that.
Holy shnikes, I just looked at his numbers.
Dude, he's really
He's got a
freaking
168 OPS plus right now. 22 home runs in 87 games.
In a pitcher-friendly ballpark in Oakland.
I think people would laugh at this statement when I make it, but it's true. He would be a bigger boost to the Cardinals offense this season than adding Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
I'll do this. If it's Gorman for him, I'll do
this. If I told you that's the deal, Gorman for Brent Rooker, are you doing it?
I'm doing it.
Because it makes a lot of sense from the A's perspective.
Is he under control?
I think he's got 2 years left.
Yeah, he's a free agent in 2028. Arbitration eligible 2025.
Yeah.
So you got 4 more years? Yeah, I'm in. I know he's old, but I'm in.
Yeah,
that makes your team better.
Plus 3 more years of arbitration. He's going to get paid in arbitration starting in like 2026, but you got a little bit of time. It'll be like a couple $1 million next year. Probably.
I mean, it would cost more than Gorman, but depending on what else is attached to that, I'd be willing to do it. I mean,
what
they're going to have to.
Said Gorman straight up?
Oh, I'd absolutely do it. I love Gorman. I think you need that kind of bat, but he can be this from the right side. Like, they need to get away from as many left-handed bats that they have. They are too left-handed heavy right now.
And that's the pop. That's a really interesting one.
I mean, I would do it. Makes
That's
your
a
team
really
better.
interesting
It makes your team better. That dude is hitting in your 4-hole.
Can we teach him first base or no? Or are we
We
just
can
going to say...
teach anybody first base. Haven't you seen Moneyball? It's the easiest
Yeah.
position to learn.
And the A's made that a thing.
Yeah. Frankly, I'm surprised they haven't done it yet.
I'd call him right now and say, hey, have him start taking grounders
He
at
could play
first.
left.
Just throw Mason Miller into it, too.
I don't know how well it would go, but he could play left.
Throw Mason
Reese
Miller
needs
in.
a DH, man.
Gorman for those two. It's fine.
That'd be
Get
interesting.
prospects.
I would consider that.
I would too.
I've said no for most Gorman deals because I think you need that power presence in your lineup.
Damn.
Rooker's the one guy where like, okay, but I've got the power presence now. It just happens to be from the right side. Now I'd like it from the left, but Rooker doesn't have splits. He hits righties and lefties just as well as he does. Like,
Remember last season when, like,
that'd be fun.
they were like, yeah, you could probably get Logan Gilbert from Seattle if you're willing to part with Nolan Gorman. And we were all like, no, don't do it.
Somebody said on the text line, who plays outfield in this scenario, assuming Rooker plays DH? I would just reconfigure it. Burleson's in the outfield now with Newt Bar in my corners, and now Donovan's playing at second
Yeah, and
base.
Siani's your center
in
fielder.
Yeah. And then next year, Burley's at first, and you hope Walker takes that role
Exactly.
right.
Or Brent Rooker's at first.
Yeah, well,
You
why
teach
not?
him first.
Rooker's probably a corner outfielder / DH. That's probably his long-term role
I mean,
for you.
first base is
Anybody can be taught first
typically
base.
A bad defender.
Protect the ball, all right? Just
Gene
protect the ball.
Alonso can
We
do
tried
it.
that with...
We saw Jose Martinez do
we
it.
tried that with Martinez.
Oh, he
and it
can't be
didn't go
that
so
bad.
well.
He can't be that bad.
We'll see. Coming up next, is there any scenario in which Masyn Winn could work his way into the Rookie of the Year conversation? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendricks here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to the Pirates yesterday 2-1. Game 2 of the 3-game set is tonight. And the pitching matchup, Lance Lynn versus Paul Skeens, 5:40 will be first pitch. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
We're going to get to Masyn Winn here in just a minute and his chances of winning the National League Rookie of the Year. It's unlikely, but we'll talk about it here in just a moment. But there is a little bit of news from the NFL. Guys, we talked about Brandon Ayuk, who wants a new contract, right? Mm-hmm. See the latest?
Did he just sign a contract extension?
He's reporting for training camp, according to Ian Rappaport at the NFL Network.
Man, way to go.
The team has not held extensive contract talks since May, and because of that, Ayuk has requested a trade, end quote. Dude, you do not have any leverage. And I think finally somebody got to him and said, hey, Brandon, we have zero leverage here. You got to show up to camp. This guy's made like $4 million in his NFL career, and he's wanting a new contract. I get that. I don't blame you for it. And is demanding a trade and was saying, oh, I'm going to hold out of camp. I'm not even going to show up. Really? You're going to get the $50,000 per day fine for not showing up to camp? You're going to get to the end of camp with like $2 million in fines? That's really how we're going to go about this when the 49ers have made it abundantly clear that's going to amount to nothing for you, and you're just going to lose out on $2 million, which is more than he's scheduled to make this year? Probably not. I don't think that was ever likely. So anyways, there's your update in the NFL. So Masyn Winn, 92 games so far this year for the St. Louis Cardinals. And in those 92 games, he's batting .285 with an OPS that's 10% above league average offensively. Alex, he also, according to Sports Info Solutions, has been the best defensive shortstop in the game, like doubling the next best, has been the best double play guy at shortstop in the major leagues, and has yet to ground into a single double play offensively. There is no player in the league with as many at-bats as Masyn Winn has that has not grounded into a double play, other than Masyn Winn. He's the one guy to do it. And what does all of that amount to? A wins above replacement number that is sky high. He's at almost 4 wins as a player, and we are 95 games into the season this year for Masyn Winn.
I think the highest right now in Major League Baseball is Bobby Witt Jr. at what, 6.7?
Yeah.
Something like that? He and Judge?
Masyn Winn is on pace right now for a 6-win season. That is almost unheard of among rookies to get a 6-win season. And when it happens, it almost always results in that rookie winning the National League Rookie of the Year. Is there any scenario where that happens for Masyn Winn this year, Alex? If he gets to 6 wins in terms of the wins above replacement number, it's not the end-all be-all. I'm not telling you guys that it is, but it's a very rare feat. The last rookie seasons that we've seen in this regard, Gunnar Henderson last year, Julio Rodriguez in 2022, Aaron Judge in 2017, Mike Trout in 2007, end of list since 2011. It's rare for a position player to put up a 6-win season. If he gets there, Alex, all of those guys I just mentioned won the Rookie of the Year. In your opinion, would he win it over Paul Skeens?
No, I don't think so. Unfortunately for him, it's an incredible season, but what Paul Skeens is doing, it's going to be hard to top. I mean, you got a guy who plays in his first All-Star game the year he was drafted, starts that All-Star game, and could be one of the big pieces why Pittsburgh could be in the playoffs this year. I think Masyn Winn is going to be top 3. I think it's going to be him, Shota Imanaga, and Masyn Winn, but I don't see how you beat Paul Skeens unless Paul Skeens is just shut down for innings limits by the end of the season. And I don't see that scenario happening when you've got the playoffs in reach. So unfortunately for Masyn Winn, because this should be a Rookie of the Year conversation, you came into the league and had an incredible season at the worst time because of Paul Skeens' emergence.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I don't think he has a shot to win the Rookie of the Year just because of Paul Skeens. And he's a phenom. He's getting national attention in a non-national market in the Pittsburgh Pirates. And he's doing just filthy stuff. Like, if I read off numbers of a 1.9 ERA in 11 starts and is striking out 12.1 per 9 innings, you wouldn't think I was talking about a rookie. You would think I was talking like prime Max Scherzer. Now, this guy's a rookie who flew through the minor leagues in like half a year. there's just nothing to top if you're Masyn Winn. Like, Masyn Winn's having an incredible season. He should be probably top 3, maybe even second in Rookie of the Year voting.
The voting right now has him at Skeens, Jackson Merrill, Shota Imanaga, Gavin Stone, Michael Bush, and Joey Ortiz are all listed ahead of him right now in the odds. That's crazy. Masyn Winn has been the second best rookie this year in the National League.
I saw somewhere James Wood has better odds than Masyn Winn of winning it too.
Not anymore. He's at 90-1 now, but Masyn Winn is basically like they're saying he has no chance. He's at 55-1, and that's fine. Like Paul Skeens is minus 1100. There is no race right now for the National League Rookie of the Year. Now, I would say, if you wanted to place a bet, because I'm not hoping for this. Nobody should be hoping for this. But if Paul Skeens got hurt, that would drastically change these odds. And Masyn Winn would probably go from being at 55-1 to like 10-1 odds overnight if that were to happen. Because Skeens, I don't think 11 starts is enough, or 12 starts, if you include tonight, is going to be enough to be able to win it. He's probably got to get to like 20 by the end of the season, like 18 to 20-ish range.
I'd agree.
But barring an injury, I think it's Skeens' award to lose. I do think it speaks, though, to what Masyn Winn is doing this year. And if it wasn't for Paul Skeens putting together one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen by a pitcher, Masyn Winn would be a runaway winner in this award. And he'd be talked about nationally in a way where we're looking at it and we're saying, like, man, look at all these young shortstops around the league. Winn should be included in whatever list it is that you're putting together right now of the best young guys in the league at that position. He's been amazing, and it's been since day one of the season. The bat has come back to earth a bit. He's not batting above 300 anymore, but dude, when I watch these Cardinals games night to night, whether it's the production or just watching the process of it, he's one of the most difficult guys on that team not named Alec Burleson to get out. Mm-hmm. It's consistent quality at bats. He gets to 2 strikes and then fouls a bunch of pitches off. He's just a nightmare. He's an absolute menace. And then if he does get on, he has the speed to either steal a base or go first to third or just become a distraction while he's on the bases. And then he happens to be one of the best, if not the very best, defensive shortstops in the league, which is the most valuable defensive position in the league. Cardinals get a lot of crap for their inability to develop stars. They developed a star in Masyn Winn. When you're talking about Gunnar Henderson, Julio Rodriguez, Aaron Judge, Mike Trout, Jason Hayward, Troy Tulowitzki, and Albert Pujols, oh, by the way, Ichiro Suzuki, those are the last players to put up the kinds of wins above replacement season that we're talking about Winn potentially doing this year. That's since 2000, the only rookies that have done what Winn is on pace right now to accomplish. It's a hell of a year, man.
But Paul Skeens, of course, comes into Major League Baseball at the same time.
Yeah, there happens to be that. Happens to be that.
By the way, I don't understand how Jackson Merrill gets all the love. Like,
he's been good.
He's been good, but Masyn Winn's been good, and like Masyn Winn's the afterthought.
And did Jackson Merrill start the season? Or did he started the season with San Diego?
I think the whole reason he gets headlines is because he was in where were they, Korea, when the season started?
I think it's because of the prospect status. He was like one of the top prospects in baseball. But, now, Winn was a top prospect, 100. But Merrill was like top 10. And then wasn't Merrill a part of the trade for, am I mistaken? No, he was always in their system.
I think he was in their system.
I don't know. I can't totally explain
I can understand how if you were to say like Shota Imanaga, just from a national perspective, he's in the biggest market in Chicago.
Yeah.
But he also had like an unbelievable start to the season. So your immediate thought is, oh, well, that guy would finish ahead of Masyn Winn. The one I don't fully understand is the Jackson Merrill one. And I think part of it, because like San Diego, they're just like the Cardinals. It's not like they're like the best team in the National League West. But somehow he continues to get these metrics. If he was on the Phillies and was doing this, and he's doing it on the national stage for the best team in baseball, maybe you could talk yourself into it. But the numbers aren't different enough that they should be this different in terms of the odds. And I think part of it is just, there's the story of he went from never playing the outfield before, and now he's out there starting in center field. And I think that's truly it. I think it is just people are so amazed that this kid could go from never playing a single game in the outfield to winning that job in spring training and now playing at the major league level.
I think a lot of the votes, too, will swing once you start to see more teams fall out of it and more teams continue to push for the playoffs. Because if the Cardinals continue to push for the NL Central title or to be the top wildcard team and Winn is continuing to be this, you'll start to see Jackson Merrill fall out if San Diego falls out. You see Shota Imanaga fall out if the Cubs fall out. That's where you start to see the separation once you get to like late August, early September.
Somebody on the text line brought up a fair point. Some of it's probably just power. Like Masyn Winn has 5 home runs so far on the season, and I think that's probably part of what keeps him out of some of these conversations that he should be included in right now. Masyn Winn has 18 doubles and 5 triples on the season. He's on pace for 35-ish doubles on the year, 8 triples and 9 home runs, something like that.
I think the triples are more impressive than the power.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd.
His slug's not that far behind.
No, I know.
No.
That's what I'm saying. You got the power and the speed,
But it's
which
the
I
12
think is
home
important.
runs. Merrill's on pace for almost 25 home runs as a rookie, whereas Masyn Winn's on pace for like 10. You know, and that sometimes speaks to where we are as a baseball watching community. And I think we've undervalued some of the other stuff that Masyn Winn brings to the table. And that is one area where I'm with a lot of our listeners right now that'll say, BK, stop talking about wins above replacement. I do not care about it. Fair. But when you have a player like a Masyn Winn or a Lars Nootbaar who just bring a lot to the table, they're just really good at a lot of different things. They bring value on the bases. They bring value defensively. They bring value with the bat, even if it's not over the top great at any one of those things necessarily. The wins above replacement number is what captures all of that value, and that is where Masyn Winn is going to shine through. He's going to shine above guys like Jackson Merrill. He has a much higher wins above replacement number than Merrill does because he does so many other things so well. I can't imagine where this team would be without him this year. Cannot imagine. Cardinals deserve a little credit for not doing what we all said, which was to go out and get one of those shortstops. That wouldn't be going very well right now.
Still probably would have gone out and got one of them to play them at second base and use that bat. I don't know who it was. Like, it wasn't going to be Trey Turner.
Yeah, Turner wasn't going to be the guy. They were never going to be able to do that kind of a contract. Yeah. Xander Bogaerts has been bad since signing the contract overall.
I think it was still Carlos Correa.
Correa would have been the guy that I was most interested in.
And you put him at second base.
We know the guy that they were going to do, though. It wasn't going to be
Dansby Swanson.
Yeah,
Swanson.
Yeah, and that would have been super disappointing.
They just drafted Dansby Swanson, apparently.
Oh, nice.
Dansby Swanson, since signing with the Cubs, has been good defensively. 740 OPS last year, 630 OPS this year, has been dealing with a bunch of injuries.
Oh, yeah. People would be losing their minds if Dansby Swanson was on this team for that contract.
He'd be your second baseman, but what would you do now with Gorman? Like, you'd be stuck. Gorman, Donovan, you'd have a bunch of these middle infielders that would be stuck behind a guy that's underperforming, and we'd all be looking around like, what did they do here?
People would be treating Dansby...
Correa would be one thing. These other guys would be a
People
problem.
would be treating Dansby Swanson the same way that Paul DeJong was treated those last couple of years, trying to find a way to just DFA him. Yeah, because
he's
of the
got
money.
a massive contract that you cannot get out of.
Yep.
Turner would have been okay. Seager would have been great.
Seager would have
They
been
would have been on a really good spot with Seager,
loved
and then he
Seager.
just would have used Gorman to go get another pitcher. And Correa would have been good. Those would have been the 3 ones that were not landing.
And those were the 3 that we were all really interested in.
Because what do? You go get the star. You don't settle for the good. When you've got a market where you've got legit star players, don't settle for the good. Go get the star in it. And the Cardinals were planning to settle for the good. Coming up next, let's dive into the jump drawer here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in less than 10 minutes, how much do you care about a pitcher's playoff success as we get closer to the deadline? We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But, Alex, I do want to talk a little bit here during the junk drawer about some of the most unusual lost and found items at Denver's airport.
Oh.
And if I'm correct, Denver's airport is one of the worst
It's
airports.
It's massive.
Yeah. Okay.
I like Denver's airport personally.
Isn't that one with the conspiracy theories around it of
yeah.
like the lizard people?
Yeah, they'll probably cover that on the Stupiracy podcast at some point, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's lizard people living underneath the Denver airport.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
The top 5
More you know.
items that are most likely to be lost include bags, IDs, glasses, electronics, and jewelry.
That checks
That
out.
all makes sense.
Okay.
There are some other items
Although
that
I don't
are...
understand the jewelry one. Why are you taking your jewelry off at the airport? I guess when you take it off to go through baggage or to TSA,
Probably.
and you don't put it back
Or
on.
maybe it falls off, like an earring falls off or something.
What about elk meat?
What?
Elk meat, man,
Dogs that were
I-
forgotten in the parking garage?
Okay, I can
that
see
is
that one.
ridiculous.
I could also see the elk meat
You
one.
can
Like
see
if
the dog one?
A circular saw?
you forgot that you brought the dog on the trip.
Battery for a forklift?
How big is that battery?
That
The
one
circular saw is wild. First of all, why are you even think
Yeah.
you could get that through TSA?
like the elk meat one I could understand too because you're a
that one-
hunter and you're
the
flying
dog,
out.
I can't. You put it in a cage specifically because you're bringing it with you on the trip. You're going somewhere to bring a dog
Hey,
with
man,
you.
I've driven with my coffee cup on the roof of my car before.
That's like saying you forgot your kids in the back seat.
People do that.
Which is wild to me.
It's not just airports, though. Hotels also have some strange lost items, as you can probably imagine.
If sex toys is not top 5 on this one, then I call BS.
A clown costume, maybe.
That falls in
With a
line.
wig and a red nose.
falls in
left
line.
behind in a room.
What happened to that clown?
I don't want to know what went on in that
He
room.
just quit. He said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Dentures,
That makes
How do you
sense.
forget your dentures, man?
witchcraft paraphernalia,
Oh,
What?
yeah, there's some satanic stuff in
a
hotels.
prosthetic limb.
What? How do you forget that?
Hold on. Yeah, that one, I don't know how you forget.
Hey, stuff gets wild, man.
That's like dentures.
You think they realize, like,
No.
you know, I'm not even going to say
When they
what I
were
was thinking.
hobbling out of their hotel room, I forgot my leg.
They went to, like, scratch their head. Oh!
Oh, not again.
A glass eye.
That one I can see because, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't know what's in. I get that.
What
An
do you know?
You can't
inflatable
see out of
boat.
it. I'm assuming that's for a pool, so.
Sure. Caviar and rosary beads. Those are some of the things that they have found, according to EasyJet Holidays, with thousands of different people that were surveyed on this.
I wanna
The
know how
strangest
somebody-
things that were left in a European hotel.
I want to know how somebody forgets their dentures. That's impossible to me.
That's a tough one.
That and the limbs.
That's like me forgetting my contacts. Like I could pretty quickly realize, oh, I can't see
Man,
right
the
now.
world is pretty blurry.
Yeah, this is weird. I didn't remember my eyesight was this bad.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, some of those were actually surprising.
The teeth one is just incredible to me.
The prosthetic limb. I've got follow-up questions.
I mean,
on
I
that
get
one.
it. Like, if you realize, like, you never have it, but you have to be able to tell, like, I've got this prosthetic
I've got some
arm.
questions. Some follow-up questions. What?
I mean, if we're asking questions, I'd like to know about the clown suit. Did he die? Did he
Yeah.
quit? Did somebody steal the clown? Like, what's going on here?
The glass eye would be a tough one to find. You're a cleaning lady. You're walking
I get
cleaning
it.
guy.
That's a good one. For the guy that forgot his prosthetic eye, I get it.
You're looking in and you're like, I gotta pick that up. I gotta pick up the glass eyeball.
This
That's
is
the one.
glass. It's not like it's a real
Yeah, but it's
eyeball.
in the socket. Like
Yeah.
you know that's going in and out. I'm good, man. I'm gonna call somebody
That's like
else.
I would
dentures,
imagine
too.
if, but I
Yeah.
imagine if it comes out, it's going to be cleaned, right? You got to put the glass eye in something that keeps it clean.
I don't know enough about how that works to be able to give you an honest
I
answer.
guarantee our text line are experts on glass eyes.
on it. Sure. I just know that I'm not gonna be the one that picks it up. That thing is definitely going straight into the trash.
I'd pick it
I'm
up.
not putting that into the lost and found.
I'm not
I'll tell you
serving
that
that room. Somebody else got to come clean
I'd
it.
pick it up to see if it breaks when I threw it.
Well, they got to get it back.
You're gonna throw the glass
Yeah,
eye.
I just want to see. Never seen
I would
glass eye
imagine
before.
it's pretty strong.
I want to see how durable it is. We're going to do a durability test with this person's eye.
Coming up next, how much do you care, if at all, about a pitcher's playoff success in their history for who the Cardinals decide to add at the deadline? We'll talk about that coming up here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK, and it's time for you to unlock your inner champion. And the place to do that is over at Victory Men's Health. 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and you can check them out today online at victorymenshealth.com. I noticed I just wasn't quite getting the same amount out of my workouts as I once did. I was getting tired a little quicker, so I went over there. I went in, and I did the blood draw, the same thing that you're going to do. I booked my appointment online, went in, and got the blood draw. First appointment after, they told me, hey, you're a little low on vitamin B12, you're low on vitamin D, you've got some iron deficiencies here as well. They got me hooked up with a multivitamin. I'm feeling much better because of the way that Victory Men's Health was able to help me out. They can do the same for you as they've done for me. I go to the location out in town and country. They've got 4 locations, though, ready to go for you. Check them out today. Victory Men's Health, and online at victorymenshealth.com. Whether it's erectile dysfunction, low testosterone, weight loss goals that you need a little bit of help with, they can help you unlock your inner champion. Learn more today by going to victorymenshealth.com. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, so question for you guys. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. How much do you care about a pitcher's playoff success in their history in terms of the guys that the Cardinals could acquire this year at the deadline? The reason I ask is because as I look at Nathan Eovaldi, who's at the top of my list of pitchers that I would most like to see the Cardinals go out there to acquire, that's probably his number one selling point. His actual regular season success, his stuff, whatever you want to look at, man, it isn't all that dissimilar from a Chris Bassett, Eric Fetty. Those guys are all kind of in the same bucket. The thing that differentiates Eovaldi for me is I've seen him do it in the playoffs. He has a 2.8 ERA as a starter in his playoff career, Alex. That is top 10 in Major League Baseball since 2000. Among starters that have thrown at least 50 playoff innings. The other guys that are in front of him, just to give you the list of his company that he's keeping right now, Steven Strasburg has been the best playoff starter in terms of ERA of the last 25 years. And then Matt Cain, Schilling, Doug Fister, weird, Mad Bum, Lester, Wheeler, Cliff Lee, and Barry Zito. Then comes Nathan Eovaldi. The dude has been amazing. He was at the front of the rotation for Boston a couple of times during playoff runs, and then last year we saw what he was able to do for Texas. For context on just how good that 2.8 ERA is that Nate Eovaldi has in his postseason career, Chris Carpenter's at a 3.0. for his playoff career, and Adam Wainwright is at a 3.2. How much does that matter to you?
I mean, I can't lie. It matters to me because it's the main reason why I don't trust Kyle Gibson or Miles Michaelis is because their lack of success in the postseason. That's why I like Nathan Eovaldi. What's weird about it is I really like the idea of Chris Bassett, and his last 2 appearances in the postseason have not gone well. I mean, you're talking about Eric Fetty, who really has not even tasted Major League Baseball postseason action. So if you're going down that path, you're talking about Nathan Eovaldi and Max Scherzer. Like, those are the guys that have postseason success that you'd be talking about at this deadline. Zach Eflin probably a little bit as well. I mean, I don't trust guys that have failed in the playoffs. I think the ones I don't trust more are ones that haven't pitched in the playoffs. Those are the ones.
Most of them.
Those are the ones that worry me the most, that have never experienced a start in the postseason, because it's a different beast. If you've struggled in the postseason, at least I can kind of see how you can figure it out. But I'd be lying to sit here and say that I don't value a guy who has had success on a big stage, which is why Nathan Eovaldi is still towards the top of my list if you're going out there, and even Max Scherzer if you're going out there to make a big type of trade.
Yeah, I think it matters a little bit for me, but it's not like the end-all, be-all. You know, like if I'm looking at Bassett versus Kikuchi, I just think Bassett's a better pitcher. I don't care what his postseason numbers are. Now, granted, Kikuchi doesn't have much postseason success either.
It's really Eovaldi versus whoever you want to throw into the mix. Like Eovaldi is the one that you can say, look at the playoff success. You could say it with Scherzer as well, but that's just a totally different conversation in every possible way. But if you're looking at Eovaldi, then Chris Bassett, Yusei Kikuchi, Eric Fetty, Zach Eflin, all of those guys, if you're just looking at like ERAs for the regular season, they're not all that dissimilar. It just becomes a question of like, okay, this one guy has this thing on his resume that's a little different. These other guys have other positives, like maybe you value their stuff better. Maybe they project better for now and for the future. Maybe you want to keep them around for a little bit longer. Like there's other reasons why you might lean towards the other guys, but the playoff success is a real factor in favor of Nathan Eovaldi.
Yeah, and I think when it's a guy like that has done it for a really, I don't know if long time's the right word, but he's done it on multiple occasions.
3 different playoff runs.
Yeah, that
on multiple
that
teams.
holds value. You know, like when I look at someone like a Chris Bassett, who's really had 2 playoff runs and had like 2 just okay outings, like I don't really read much into that, you know. But if it's someone that has like sustained success on multiple playoff runs, yeah, I want that guy. I want that guy because you know what he's proven? He's done it in the crunch time in October. If there's a guy that has multiple occasions in October that does not pitch well, Kershaw, for example, that worries me. Why? Because he's not performing in October. Now, I'm not saying Kershaw's available, but that's the example. So if you don't have a lot of experience, I don't hold that against you. Like Goldschmidt and Arenado, we always talk about their lack of playoff performances here in St. Louis. They've had, 3 games? Like, I don't know how much I really value that in 3 games. Anything can happen in 3 games. But when you have it like Eovaldi, where he's done it on 3 different occasions on 3 different playoff runs, I do think that holds some value and is something that should make you want to value him a little bit more when you're looking at your trade board.
To me, it matters a lot. If it's something that I can actually have on the board, like when I'm looking at Eovaldi versus Bassett and Kikuchi and Fetty and Eflin, there's a clear star for me that goes next to Eovaldi's name. Now, if Eovaldi was worse, if Eovaldi had like a 4.5 ERA and these other guys are all in the mid-3s and it's like me saying, hey, but look at what he's done in his playoff history, I don't know if that's enough to close that kind of a gap. But when I view all of them as relatively similar in terms of the pitcher that I'm going to acquire, and one of them has this extra thing on his resume that when the pressure gets ramped up to its highest possible level, he gets better, that is something that I'm not going to necessarily like dock the other guys that they haven't done it. It's something that I'm going to boost up Eovaldi for that he has done it. So to me, it's why he's number 1 on my trade board. If I'm in Mo's shoes, I'm waiting on the Rangers to give me an answer on what their plans are at the deadline and then what it would take to be able to acquire Eovaldi before I'm moving on to any of these other players on my list of like really trying to target them. Another question that we got to before the show today, we were talking a little bit about the Cardinals versus the Blues and where they're at in their respective builds, so to speak, whatever you want to call it, a rebuild, retool, just a build. I don't think that the Cardinals are similar to the Blues at all right now. And one of the reasons why is because I view where the Cardinals are at is where the Blues hope to be like 2 years from now. Like, if you end up getting positive returns from Snuggerud or Bolduc or Dvorsky, like these guys, that's basically what the Cardinals are getting right now. Like, Jake Neighbors for the Blues, I think we asked this question before the season, Alex. Jake Neighbors was for the Blues this year what Burleson has been for the Cardinals in 2024. Where it's just this, whoa, where'd that come from? This is amazing. And stylistically, it's something that appeals to me. Low strikeout rate, high average hits for power. Guy that stands in front of the net, yeah, that appeals to this fan base, certainly for the hockey side of things as well. The difference is the Cardinals also have Masyn Winn, who's performing at an extraordinarily high level. That would be like next year if Dvorsky or Snuggerud come in and just, probably Dvorsky, honestly.
I think Masyn Winn is Robert Thomas. I think Masyn Winn is what Robert Thomas did last year. I understand, but Robert Thomas is still very young. You're talking about 24 years old, and I think Masyn Winn's season now is what Robert Thomas just did last year, and next year with Masyn Winn is what T-Bone and I talked about yesterday. Somebody asked if Thomas could be a 100-point player next year. I think Masyn Winn next year is where people start dreaming, is this dude an all-star? Can he take his game to the next level? That's why I feel they're so similar in my mind, because I think why the Blues and Cardinals are in the same spot is the Cardinals are hoping that their pitching, their young pitching that they have in their system, is going to take the step in the offseason and become these guys that you can rely on, just like the Blues are hoping that Bolduc and Snuggerud and Dvorsky can take the next step this year and put them in a relevant position.
I don't think the Cardinals are hoping for that. I think the Cardinals are hoping that their veteran starters can be good enough and that their offense is going to be what carries them. Is that wrong? Am I alone in that regard?
I don't know who your veteran starters are like in 3 years, for example.
Well, that's the thing. Their future doesn't.
But I think, like, you look across baseball, look at the starting pitching for what a team had 3 years ago and what it is today. Like, I don't think anybody has a plan for what their starting rotation is going to be 3 years from now. It's all hope. Hey, hopefully some of these prospects will work through it. If not, we'll sign starters in the offseason for $10 to $20 million. That's just how everybody operates now. It's so hard to be able to plan for that. I think the Cardinals are acknowledging, based upon what we've seen from their actions both last offseason and then what they've done into this year, that the AAA starters are just like, we'll see. We'll see.
It feels different because it feels like the Cardinals don't really have a future direction. I mean, there are certain players that you're hoping for, but like you still have a lot of unknowns, and it feels like at least you see the direction that the Blues are trying to achieve.
So interesting, man, because I feel the opposite.
I don't really know what the Cardinals are in the long run. Like, I don't know what their plan is, because like what you said with pitching, like for 2 years, whatever, how many years you want to go. Like next year I can understand what they're doing, and then I don't know where they go from there, because they're going to be back in the same spot they were this offseason, which is Michaelis, Matz, Gibson are all off the books. I mean, like, potentially.
I think if you're a team that's willing to spend the money, no.
I think the chances are that
they're
you
like
weren't
top 5 in Major League Baseball in spending on their rotation.
I think the chances of the success you've had with your offseason signings this year with the pitching, I think it's a lot harder to replicate that if you go to the offseason. I agree,
but Pallante emerging is something that is noteworthy. If you
that's what he's talking about with like Matthews,
right? But what I'm saying is hit on one of those guys. Like if one of them emerges as a mid-rotation starter, now I've got 2 guys that are cost controlled in my rotation. I can build around that. That's what most rotations look like across Major League Baseball in terms of like how many homegrown pitchers are a part of this thing. Typically like 2.
Problem is I think the Cardinals have to hit on an ace because they haven't proven to spend on an ace. And look, I know they signed Sonny Gray. We've talked about it. Sonny Gray, and I think Saris told us this when we had him on a couple weeks ago. You're not going to get that in the offseason very often, where there's an older pitcher that's like 30. I don't know what he is, 33.
I'm with you, but that's just like I don't even know how to have that conversation. It's like a number 1 defenseman. Like there's nobody in the Blues.
The same thing.
There's nobody in the Blue system that's becoming a number 1 defenseman either. You got to hope that you can find enough other stuff that you can mask it. The Panthers this year didn't have a true number 1 defenseman the way that we would traditionally look at it that way, but they had enough to be able to make up for it. Good goaltending, really good offense. You figure it out. The Rangers last year didn't have a traditional number 1 as a part of their rotation. Well, they tried to. They hoped that
they were all in the IL.
Exactly. But when they went into the playoffs and they went on their run, they didn't have a traditional number 1. That's essentially what the Cardinals are hoping to do. It's a hard way to build.
My argument against this, I said this about the Rangers, and it's what I feared the Cardinals would do this offseason, and I think I could make an argument against the Panthers, but a little different in hockey. Those are outliers. I think winning a World Series without a 1, it's an outlier. I think winning a Stanley Cup without a number 1 defenseman, an outlier.
I think pitching has become so good that I'm not sure it's going to be an outlier long term, if that makes sense. Like I think you can now. You have to have 4 guys that you really like and then unbelievable bullpen arms to be able to get through that way. It's a harder way to build for October, but I think it can be done. And like Sonny Gray's really good, man. And if they go out and they get Nathan Eovaldi or somebody like that, it's literally what they did last year in Texas. So you've got the ability to do that. But what I'm saying really, it's not even necessarily about that. It's about where you're at in your build. I think the Cardinals are just further along in their build. And this is not a shot against the Blues. They shouldn't be. The Blues more recently won a title. It should be harder for them to get back to where they were than it is for the Cardinals. The Cardinals have been building this current position player core for 4 years now. Like, we've been talking about this since the 2020 draft, basically. And you can include Gorman in that, who was even before that. So if they weren't further along, then something would be horribly awry with what the Cardinals are doing within their system. But now you look at their pipeline, and they have developed internally Nootbaar, Gorman, Burleson, Winn, hopefully Walker. You're thinking that you've got something pretty good with Brendan Donovan right now as well. Herrera potentially, Pages. Like, they've got a lot of dudes, and now you just got J.J. Weatherholt as well, who should be a part of this in the not-too-distant future. I think what you're seeing is the Cardinals have a very clear plan, but the plan is mostly position player-focused. Their most recent plans were mostly pitching-focused. They're building more similar to what the 2016 Cubs were. That's their plan right now.
Like, where are they in their build? That's my question. Is like, what are they in win now mode? Are they still retooling? Like, that's where I don't understand. Because like you mentioned all those position players, you know what we're talking about? They need offense. Like, they feel stuck.
And I think you're in win now mode because you have to win when Sonny Gray's at this level.
I think baseball, like we talked about this in hockey, basketball is this way as well. I don't know why this is the case, but it feels like a lot of teams are unhappy with where they're at in their build. Like, how many teams across Major League Baseball right now, their fan bases, are genuinely happy with where their team is at in their life cycle currently? Like, the Guardians, I think Orioles fans are even frustrated with where they're at right now because they want them to be more aggressive. Yankees fans hate their team right now. I guess Astros fans probably because they've done so much winning, and so it buys you a little bit of good grace this season. Seattle fans hate their team. They're decision makers.
Royals are happy with where
Phillies
they are.
are happy. Royals are happy. Is that it?
I'm counting 8 teams in the National League that I would imagine happy where they're at.
8?
I mean, the Phillies happy where you're at. Braves injuries, but you're happy with your roster.
I don't think Braves fans are happy this year.
Oh, well,
Not
of course
this
not
year,
this year, but you're injured this year. All your teams on the injured
Braves
list.
fans have a lot of questions about what things kind of look like right now. Acuna has now had 2 devastating injuries over the course of the 3-year
If I'm a Braves fan, though, I still feel good about my team.
I think there are more questions.
Pittsburgh,
I don't know
Dodgers,
that Washington fans are thrilled.
Padres, Diamondbacks.
Who was the team after Washington?
Pittsburgh.
I think there's a lot of questions there.
I mean, if I'm a fan, I'm excited about what the future looks like.
I think there's a lot of angst
Washington,
about whether or not
I'm excited
they're
about the future.
invest.
I mean,
I don't know about that either.
I think if I'm a fan, I think I'm a fan of these 8 teams. I'm at least pleased with where I'm at right now.
Who are the other ones in the NL West?
Dodgers, Padres, and Diamondbacks.
I don't think any of those teams are happy right now. I don't think Dodgers fans are thrilled about the way things have gone. I think Padres fans are underwhelmed.
But you're saying right now, you asked the question
about
about roster construction. And I think if I'm those teams, players are having bad years or are injured, but I'm happy with my roster construction. Who's injured on your team?
I mean, but you said bad years or are injured.
But you're not. But back-to-back bad years for your 2 big bats that are supposed to be carrying you.
One of them's gone, and then next year it's a question of what's Jordan Walker going to be, what's Corbin Carroll going to be. That determines the outlook.
There's
for a
no
lot
injury
of
on your
teams.
pitching staff. Your pitching staff is this.
Yeah, and the pitching hasn't been their problem necessarily this year.
The first half it hasn't been. What's the second half look like?
I don't know.
And they're aging.
We haven't seen it yet.
I think there's like one team that's happy in the National League. Maybe
I think
2.
the National League is genuinely unhappy.
I hear an argument on
disagree.
Arizona being happy with their build. They're hurt. If you've got as many injuries as Arizona and Atlanta, I think it's hard to judge.
I think if you're a Diamondbacks fan, the question is, did we luck into a World Series appearance last year? Did we have the year last year where we were a year ahead of schedule and we thought we were better than we actually were? And it's an open question right now. Dude, they're 1 game above 500 on the season. I think they're going to be better because their pitching is going to get healthy. But they've got a lot of underperformers on that
That's
team.
the tough part with Arizona, and that's why, like, again, I have a tough time deciding if their fans are happy. Their fans should be happy because their ownership put a really good payroll together for them, and they built out a roster, and they've dealt with injuries. And their offense is great. And to your point, if their pitching gets back healthy in time, they're a playoff team. And that's where that's the reason I have a tough time in Arizona, because unlike Pittsburgh, where I understand what you're saying about
their question,
Pittsburgh,
though, if I'm a fan of their team, is what's our expectation? Is it to get to the playoffs or is it to do something more?
I think theirs is to do something more.
Yeah, and if I'm a fan of their team, I mean, right now we're...
Yeah, but if you're going off of roster construction, we're talking about
they're out of the playoffs.
3 of their pitchers are hurt.
Yeah.
When healthy, they're a playoff team.
Maybe. Right now they're not.
Because their guys are hurt.
Sure.
Like, I'm not going off of now. I'm going off of roster construction.
When Jordan Walker gets right, the Cardinals are a playoff team. But guess what? He's not
I've
right.
never seen him right.
We saw it for 5 months last year. What are you
But
talking
they're telling us that that was a fluke.
No, they're telling you that right now he's not right. Just like for Corbin Carroll, right now he's one of the worst hitters in Major League Baseball. So whether he's at the Major League level and is failing here or is at AAA and is failing there, they're failing. And they were two of the guys that last year looked like some of the best and brightest young stars in the league. And instead, Corbin Carroll this year is slugging .330. You think the Cardinal stars have been bad this year? Dude, watch some Corbin Carroll. He has been horrible from start to finish this year, and that is a much bigger problem than what the Cardinals have right now with Goldie, because Goldie's gone next year, man. Goldie's been more productive this season than Corbin Carroll has been, and he's gone at the end of the year. Corbin Carroll has been horrible, and they signed him to a massive contract, and they're tied to him for a long time. So, moral of the story, like my argument here is just, I think that the builds are so different from what the Cardinals are doing and what the Blues are doing, and I think they're at different places within their respective builds. I'm not down on either of them. I think the Blues should be early in their process, and we'll see what it looks like when Dvorsky, when Snuggerud, when all of the Swedes come over. Like, that's to be seen, and we're probably 2 years away from some of that stuff happening. I think the Cardinals right now are showing you what the next glimpse of what Cardinals baseball is going to look like because of Donovan, because of Winn, because of Burleson. We'll see with Gorman. We'll see with Nootbaar. We'll see with Herrera. We'll see with Walker. But they're already on the cusp or here right now. The Blues players I still view as being a little further away. All right, coming up next, which NFL teams are most set up for success over the next 3 seasons? I'll tell you here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, so which teams are best set up in the NFL to have success over the next 3 seasons? Alex, you might be surprised to see that ESPN.com, according to their article on this, has the Kansas City Chiefs at number 1, the best setup over the next 3 years. The things that they take into account here, overall roster construction, not including the quarterback, and then the quarterback, coaching, and front office. The Chiefs ranked in the top 2 in each of those 4 categories, which means you're number 1 on this list. I don't think there's a particularly interesting conversation to be had there, though. I think everybody agrees with that, right?
Yeah. Now let me tell you why I think it's not going to happen.
I mean, they're all old, and Mahomes is overweight, so I don't know how he's going to maintain it, but that's fine.
Beyond that is where I think things get really interesting. For ESPN.com, their top 5 teams for the next 3 years, best set up for success.
Can we guess these?
Sure. Do you have it in front of you?
No, I don't have the list.
Cool.
I'm just going out. Houston has to be on this.
They are not in the top 5.
Okay, well, this is a stupid list then. Detroit?
They are at number 4.
Okay. Chicago?
They are not in the top 5.
This is a stupid list. San Francisco's probably on here.
They are not.
Wow.
I'm not surprised because they've got to deal with Ayuk and
Green
Purdy's
Bay.
contract.
Nope.
They got to deal with Love's contract, so it makes sense to me why they're not there.
I can't see Philly on there. Dallas can't be on there.
Philly's 5.
What?
Oh, and you get a new coach in there.
Philly's 5.
And
You got 2 other teams, both in the AFC.
And Houston wasn't on this list.
Correct.
If you're going off of coaching and quarterback and roster construction, and Philly's on there, who doesn't even have...
Philly had the number 1 ranked front office. They were 6th in overall roster, 7th in quarterback, which feels a little high. 14th in coaching was where they came out.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, I'm surprised
The
front office
Texans were
that high,
5th in overall roster, 5th at quarterback, 7th in coaching, 10th in front office. So it just came out where the Eagles were barely ahead of them, but
Oof, yeah. I would, if you're going off a future, I think Houston's going to have a lot more winning than Philly over the next 3 years.
Number 2 team yet?
Miami?
No. AFC teams at 2 and 3.
Is it Cincinnati? I guess I completely overlooked that. No. I have no idea then. Do you know the list too, T-Bone?
I've seen
so I'm
the
the only
list.
one guessing? Okay.
Number 2 is the Ravens. Number 3 is the Buffalo Bills. So your top 5, Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, Lions, Eagles. And then after that, it's the honorable mentions, Texans, 49ers. You guessed a lot of these. The Bengals. I mean, you guessed half the NFL. So,
I would totally disagree with 2 of those on that list because I would have Houston in the top 5. And I think I would have Green Bay in the top 5.
I think the Ravens are a really interesting case study because Lamar Jackson is a 3-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time MVP. He has played, if you're just looking at full seasons, basically 3 full seasons. He missed time in 2021 and 2022 with injuries, illnesses, whatever. But he missed a decent amount of the 2021 and 2022 season. So he's played 3 essentially full seasons. And in 2 of those, he's won the NFL MVP. Alex, the reason why I bring that up is because it does remind me a little bit of the Peyton Manning conversation that we had early in Peyton Manning's career, where Manning was as accomplished as you could possibly have for a quarterback. He was winning MVPs. He was throwing all the yards, or throwing for all the yards you could possibly ask for. And by the time we got to 2004, he's 6 years into his NFL career, and he's basically done nothing in the postseason. But he's won multiple MVPs, and he's considered to be maybe the second best quarterback in the league behind Tom Brady. Brady more accomplished. Brady more accomplished in terms of the team accomplishments. He's won the Super Bowls, right? Manning more accomplished in terms of winning multiple MVPs at that point in his career. Had at that point been a top 5 MVP finisher 4 different times in his career. Is there a scenario where Lamar has a very similar trajectory to his career to what we saw with Peyton Manning? They go about it very differently. One with their arm, one more with their legs. But individual accomplishments early on and then eventually get their team accomplishments, is that something you could see in Lamar's future? Because that would be how you get them to be the number 2 team on a list like this.
Yeah, I think you have to win a Super Bowl, right? Like You're going to have to win the Super Bowl if you want to do that because the
Peyton
one
did eventually.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The one knock on Lamar Jackson is you can't do anything beyond the first round of the playoffs. I mean, so AFC Championship, he's been there once. I mean, Lamar Jackson has been a liability for his team in the postseason, and until you do that, lead them to the promised land. And I don't even know if it's winning a Super Bowl for Lamar.
Peyton, remember, was viewed the same way, though. early in his career where it was like, yeah, okay, cool. He's throwing for all these yards in the regular season. What about once he gets to the playoffs? He's choking against Tom Brady and the Patriots.
That was it. That was the Patriots. This has been Lamar loses to the Chargers, the Titans, the Bills, the Bengals. He's only lost to Mahomes once.
Yeah,
like he's losing to every team in the playoffs in the wild card or divisional round. It's not Joe Burrow where you're running into Kansas City or Josh Allen where you're running into the Patrick Mahomes every single year. And it's like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, Josh Allen, did he win an MVP?
No.
I mean, I would say Josh Allen might be more prone. He'd have to win MVPs to do it, but he'd be more prone to be the Peyton Manning than Lamar because at least he's got the excuse of like, what am I going to do? I can't get past Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I think Lamar has the chance to be the Manning because of the awards that you're talking about. And I think the problem for Lamar, at least this is how I feel. And look, I don't remember a lot of those early Colts days with Peyton Manning. I was just a young lad back then. But I feel like Baltimore's kind of trending in the wrong direction in terms of you look at that roster as a whole. Like they got older with Derrick Henry at running back. If you're big, I've said this before. If your biggest off-season acquisition to help your offense was an old running back, there's a chance that doesn't work out. And I look at some of the weapons they've got, the wide receiver room. Like I kind of like Zay Flowers, but outside of that, I don't know if I like a lot of their weapons outside of Mark Andrews. And the offensive line's become a question. I think the defense is starting to age out a little bit. Like that roster as a whole feels like it's starting to kind of exit its window, and you've already paid Lamar now. I don't know. I feel like Lamar is one of those guys that it feels like he's kind of missed his window, and the team is starting to kind of move out around him. And if that starts to be the case, I can see how he falls into the Peyton Manning one because he has won the MVPs. And if you don't do anything in the playoffs, nobody really cares about the MVP. Those will be forgotten if you don't have postseason success.
Yeah, it becomes Rodgers, where it's like, oh, it was actually a disappointing career. Like he won all these MVPs. And
we talked about this in the office. I had no idea Rodgers was a 2-time MVP. I thought he had one. I didn't realize he had a second one.
Well, it's more than that.
It's more. He's got 4 of them.
He was a 2-time MVP with the Packers, and then he won 2 early on, and then won 2 late in his career prior to the trade. The other place that I think it's very similar between Peyton and Lamar is we've done this like brainwashing thing of forgetting how we talked about Peyton Manning early in his career in the playoffs. Here's what he did. His offenses did in their losses early on. Peyton Manning, offense against Tennessee in 1999, 16 points in that game. He threw for 227 yards, 0 touchdowns. Against Miami in 2000 in the playoffs, they scored 17 points offensively. He completed 50% of his passes, 1 touchdown, no picks. Against the Jets in 2003, they got blown out 41-0. He completed 45% of his passes, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 130 yards in that game. Gets to 2004, they go against the New England Patriots. They're red hot, dude. 38 points against the Kansas City Chiefs the week prior. Did not punt a single time in that game. Threw for 5 touchdowns against Denver, blew them out. And then they get to New England. They're on the road against the New England Patriots. He completes less than 50% of his passes and throws 4 interceptions in a loss that they lost 24-14. The next year, once again, they go up against the New England Patriots. Guess what? 230 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. They lose 20-3. The next year, they go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round of the playoffs. He throws for 290, but 1 touchdown. They score 18 points. Boom. Bounced out of the playoffs once again, 21-18. So they lost against Tennessee, Miami, the Jets, the Patriots, and the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first 6 times that he went to the playoffs. And then finally in 2006, he gets to and wins the Super Bowl. Funny thing is, that was actually one of his worst runs to a Super Bowl as well. But the defense was finally good that year, so that they ended up carrying him that way. I think there's a lot of similarities, man. And what we've seen early on in Lamar's career to what we saw early on in Peyton's career, you've got all the individual accomplishments, and then it's a question of can he get it done in the playoffs? Nobody's going to believe it until they actually see it. Just like nobody believed it with Peyton until we finally saw it in 2007 in that playoff run. And then suddenly I was like, okay, you can win a Super Bowl with Peyton.
Who's more like, and this is a tough question to ask because like Lamar's got the MVPs that we're talking about here. And the guy I'm about to bring up does not, but he has a lot of the same thing. And it's another guy that we've talked about that a lot of people are down on, Lamar or Dak. Because Dak's got a lot of the same. He doesn't have the MVP, and this is why it's a tougher conversation.
I think Dak's more Rivers.
Yeah,
that's what makes him tough. Is I think Dak Prescott has a lot of, and I've said this before, like when he puts together good regular seasons, I don't think he's such a choke artist that he'll never win in the playoffs. I think at some point he'll figure it out, just like I think it's possible at some point Lamar figures it out.
I think he's more in that Rivers role. Because I was always a Rivers guy, and I have just transferred that over to being a Dak Prescott guy. They're both so unbelievably successful, so productive during the regular season. And there's so many different reasons why I could say for either of their respective teams, they have not worked out in the playoffs. Rivers, tough as hell, and it just never came together for him while he was with the Chargers. Same thing is true for what you've seen so far with Dak in the postseason. I think it can work. I have no basis for that of like what I've seen with my own eyes or what we've all seen with our eyes in the postseason. It just comes down to like, will it happen or not? But I think Lamar to Peyton, there's like a 1-to-1 correlation there. So for me, reason I bring that up when it comes to their like outlook long term, if I can see him being the next Peyton, they should probably be at number 2 on this list, regardless of what we think around him, because I think they've got a really good coach and they clearly have a really good quarterback. But that would be the team that's the spot that's most in question, is who's going to be the number 2 team behind the Chiefs over the next few seasons. Who's the one that's most likely to unseat them? I currently cannot see it being the Ravens, but I couldn't see it being the Colts whenever they went to the Super Bowl and won it in 2007 either.
I have 3 teams before I would even get to the Ravens that could unseat Kansas City.
Who you got?
I got Cincinnati. I've got Houston. And then I still, which maybe I'm just in denial mode, I still have for some reason more faith in Josh Allen and the Bills than Lamar Jackson and the Ravens.
I mean, ESPN clearly has a lot of faith in them as well. They've got them at number 3.
I mean, Ravens, I have all those teams prior to the Ravens that could unseat the Chiefs in a playoff series.
I've got Texans as by far number 1 in terms of like 3-year outlook.
Sure.
Just because they've got the rookie contract. They're already trying to take advantage of it with the Stephon Diggs trade that you saw this offseason. And I don't know who the close second is behind them, because like Cincinnati, I've got all kinds of questions. They've got they're going to lose one of their wide receivers. Trey Hendrickson's probably going to be gone. I don't trust Baltimore. Buffalo's the one that's interesting, because now that they've done this kind of reset with their cap, in like 2-3 years, maybe they can get aggressive and get back into that conversation.
Yeah, I think I would have the Texans at number 2 as well. But if Lamar figures it out in the postseason, they'll be the correct answer here at number 2. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, MLB trade deadline Roundup.
Did you not expect that?
Coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb. Her and her team at Allstate taking care of you for all of your insurance needs, for your car, for your home, making sure the most important things for you and your family are covered. And what I love about Tracy, I'll give you a perfect example because my brother-in-law had this problem, I think it was about a week ago, where he got into a fender bender on the side of the road, tried to call insurance. Nobody called him. He was sitting on hold forever. And finally, after like 2.5 hours, he got the problem resolved and got a hold of his insurance agent. You don't have that issue with Tracy. She's always available for you. They preach it's not a matter of if something happens, it's when something happens. And when it does, you need that personal attention, relationship with your insurance rep. And that is Tracy and her team, offering the most competitive rates, making sure you're always aware of what falls under that umbrella of your home and car insurance. So give her a call today, and Tracy will walk you through the entire process. Super simple, free non-committal quote, 314-328-4260. That's 314-328-4260. Tell Tracy Alex Ferrario sent you. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
Tara Hendricks near the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals back in action tonight as it's game 2 of their 3-game set at the Pittsburgh Pirates. 5:40 will be first pitch as Lance Lynn will be on the mound for St. Louis and Paul Skeens will be on the mound for the Pittsburgh Pirates. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
All right, it's time for your Major League Baseball trade deadline.
Roundup.
T-Bone?
Oh, sorry.
Damn it, Tanner.
We're a little
Come
rusty.
on.
We got to get back into it. We've got a week left prior to the deadline, which means that it is officially
I've got the
time.
Bradford screech
Start
in my
talking about.
Don't you put that damn
Deadline.
conductor hat on. That's a
No.
different segment. Man, my throat already hurts, and I did it once.
Yeah, I came into the day a little
BK was
sore in terms of the
complaining about
throat.
BK's got a sick day tomorrow.
Yeah, get excited about that. All right, so
He's
let's go
early,
through
gets
these.
his
We'll go
sick
through
days.
kind of quick hitter style here. Jed Hoyer said yesterday that the Cubs are looking beyond this season at this year's trade deadline. In other words, yeah, we're sellers. Our team stinks. It's time for us to go ahead and look towards the future. I
team
don't
goes
know
out
that they
there.
have anything to sell. Do you guys see anything that's worthy of buying if you're another team from them?
Bellinger, if you need some offense. I mean, if you could get Ian Happ, I don't think you'd get him away from them. I don't think
Tyon,
so.
I guess.
Maybe.
They'd
Maybe.
probably love to trade Swanson.
How bad has Patrick Wisdom been?
Yeah, he's been
Bad?
He's
Because
just-
that's a bench back.
Like,
Our
it's
bench
great
bat.
that they're selling, but
Yeah.
if you have
Eyes
a
on the
garage
future.
sale with nothing to buy, are you actually having a garage sale?
Well, you walk through the garage sale and like, what's this? Crap? Okay, back to the car.
Yeah, John Morosi reporting that on the Scooble sweepstakes, there is a team worth monitoring. It is the
Cardinals!
Baltimore Orioles.
Oh.
According to John Morosi,
Crap.
the Tigers have had a scout watching the Orioles AAA affiliate in recent days. That includes, Jackson Holiday. Guys, in your opinion, is Tariq Skubal going to be dealt? And if so, are the Orioles the most likely destination?
I think it's either the Orioles or the Dodgers because they have the farm system that could pull it off. I don't think he gets traded. I think they're going to ask for too much for a guy that's had a couple of injuries in his past, and that's way too risky to sell the farm on.
I think the Orioles are the only team that could get it done, and I don't think they're going to do it.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards no, but I'm curious to know what happens if the Dodgers get Crochet. If the Dodgers make a power swing and they get Crochet, does Baltimore answer by trying to get Scooble?
And it's not just Crochet. It might be Luis Robert with it.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense for them to get a cost-controlled arm that they can have in their system that can kind of take over the number one role when Burns walks in free agency. I don't know. I lean towards no, but I think I'm a lot closer to yes than I was a couple weeks ago.
Can you imagine if Philly decided to do it? We're just like, okay, you're going to go out there and get that? You're going to get Crochet?
You know who's going to do
All right, cool.
We got Dodgers will make the trade and San Diego go, oh, crap, we really need somebody.
We got to get the playoffs.
The next thing up as we go through some Major League Baseball deadline.
Roundup.
Yeah!
Glad you guys are doing that.
The Reds swept by the Nationals over the weekend. John Morosi reporting that they are expected to move on from their expiring contracts. Biggest one on that one is Frankie Montas, who's been pretty good for them this year when healthy. Nick Martinez is another option. Do you think there's any scenario in which the Cardinals and the Reds could do a deal? No. The Cardinals did this for an expiring deal with the Pirates a few years ago, so it doesn't happen often, but they did get Quintana in that deal.
I mean, unless we're talking like real low-level prospects that you're trading away, I don't see it being a match because, frankly, I don't think those guys really match what the Cardinals need right now.
Do you have interest in Montas?
No, not really.
Okay.
I don't really either. I don't think he's been that impressive with Cincinnati. He's got okay numbers, but I'm more excited for whoever gets Montas. They're probably going to trade a starter like the Yankees did, and that's how the Cardinals got Montgomery.
There you go, yeah. The next thing is we continue going through some Major League Baseball trade deadline.
Roundup!
Yeah!
Yeah, there's a reason this segment died pretty quick.
Because our voices are
exhausting.
According to Ken Rosenthal, quote, in a trade market short on aces, Scooble is a logical target for teams that are urgently seeking help. The Orioles and the Dodgers fit that description. So do the Guardians, the Astros, and the Padres. A number of other clubs, including the Red Sox, Cardinals, and Braves, are looking too. Jim Bowden adding that, quote, he expects that the Cardinals will trade for a veteran starting pitcher such as Chris Bassett or Eric Fetty. So two different national reports, both from The Athletic, saying they see the Cardinals as being significantly involved in the starting pitching market. Bowden going so far as to say Fetty and Bassett are the two guys that he thinks make sense for them. Guys, state your claim. Make your bet today. Who do you think that the Cardinals are going to acquire starting pitching-wise at this year's deadline?
I'm going to put my money on Chris Bassett. I think that's the one that they go with. And I don't know if you get a bullpen arm in it. I don't know if it's a package, but I'm going to bet on them getting Chris Bassett.
Can't believe I'm here, but I think that's where my money is as well.
Wow.
Because they've got a big history with dealing with the Toronto Blue Jays. I think that matters when you're looking at trade deadline talks. And I think he fits the Cardinals' profile. Sinker baller, going to have a low 3s ERA and have like strikeout stuff like Gibson. Scream St. Louis Cardinal.
Man, I think they're going to end up getting Fetty. That would be my guess. Like if I was to put my money behind one horse, it would be the Eric Fetty horse. I think that's the guy they end up going out there and getting. He's $7.5 million next year. He's cheap, cost controlled, went overseas, fixed himself. Sounds very Cardinals-y, right? But he's actually really good. So it would also be a good acquisition if the Cardinals decided to go that route. I also don't think he's going to cost a ton to be able to acquire. It'd be decent trade, but I don't think it's going to be too much. That would be my guy. If the Rangers decide to sell, I think Evaldi makes a lot of sense for them. I would keep an eye on that one.
Mosey on over down to Texas.
Final thing here. Guys, earlier today we talked a little bit about Brent Rooker
High lasso
as a candidate for the Cardinals to trade for. He's a right-handed bat. He's been amazing this season for the A's. I feel like it's gone under the radar because nobody cares about the Oakland A's. Fair.
Whoa.
They stink. He's been like 60% above league average offensively. He strikes out all the time, but he hits for a ton of power, right-handed. 29 years old, but still 3 years left of club control. I asked on Twitter earlier today, if the A's were to call you and say, hey, we'll trade you Brent Rooker for Nolan Gorman. Gorman has more defensive value. He has an extra year of control, and he's much younger. So that would be why the A's would consider something like this. Rooker for Gorman and Graceffo. You're in John Mozeliak's shoes. What do you say, Alex?
I say yes. I know he's older, and I know he's similar to Nolan Gorman in terms of the swing and miss stuff, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who could have back-to-back 30 home run seasons, and I mean, we're still hoping that Gorman gets to that. And on top of it, he's a right-handed bat, which I think is something you are desperate for right now. And if I've got to give up a Nolan Gorman, I think I have somebody to replace the defensive position, and I'm bringing in somebody who brings that same offense just from the other side of the plate. So I would say yes.
I'm saying yes as well. They need more thump from the right side. It's just that simple. They've got to start hitting for some slug, and they need it from that right side.
I'm saying yes and then praying that Gorman doesn't make me regret it.
He said, okay,
50%
we'll
of the
never
votes are on the yes side of
goes to
things.
Vegas.
50% are on the no side of things. We're almost 900 votes in. It is exactly split 50-50. That is your latest edition of the Major League Baseball trade deadline.
Roundup! Yeah!
Coming up next, we'll
Never
give you
again.
a 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash game here on BK and Ferrario.
Is that all, sir?
Yep, all I can afford.
Price check on ED Meds. Manager to the front, please.
Paying too much for your ED meds? Want discreet, convenient pickup or free delivery to your home or workplace? The Medicine Shop in St. Charles is your destination. Get generic sildenafil for less than $2 a pill with a prescription. A full pharmacy with a quality promise and the personal care and attention you deserve. Call 636-949-5593.
stcharles.medicineshop.com.
Now is your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash game for the Cardinals versus the Rangers. Next week's Bud Bash game features a limited edition Steve Klein bobblehead. If you're texter number 101 at 314-399-9646 with the correct answer to the following question, you are getting that 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash game. Earlier today, we talked about the lost and found at a specific airport. What airport did that take place in? If you have the correct city to that answer, you are getting the 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash game as long as you are texter number 101. All right, to finish out the show today, Cardinals going up against Paul Skeens tonight, Alex. This is going to be one hell of a task for them to be able to go up against him and find a way to get a win. It doesn't happen very often. Last night was a big game. They lost it. Do you give them a chance tonight?
I don't, because of who you have pitching. I think you're going to have a low-scoring one from Paul Skeens. I think the over-under set at 7.5 strikeouts, and I would take the heavy over in that. The problem is you've got Lance Lynn going, and I know Pittsburgh's offense isn't scary, but I think you're going to see another Pirates win tonight.
Yeah, I think they'll lose, but I think it'll be like 3-1, somewhere in that range. I think Lynn can kind of shut down the Pirates' offense. He hasn't been good, but if Michaelis can, anybody can. So I think that he would be able to shut down. He's got more swing and miss than Michaelis. So.
They have only lost 3 starts so far that Paul Skeens started this year. He has not allowed more than 3 earned runs in any individual start, and that was in his first start so far this year. I'm going to say they lose this one 4-3 in the end. It's going to be close because every Cardinals game is close. Hey, coming up on the Fast Lane, you'll be able to hear from Rick Ankiel and Pete Kozma later on this afternoon. Those guys are going to be a part of the Home Run Derby. That's coming up on Saturday night. It is the annual Riz Show versus the Fast Lane Home Run Derby, hosted by the O'Fallon Hoots. If you guys want to get some GA tickets, they're on sale right now at 101ESPN.com. Home Run Derby is brought to you, as always, by Swiss Air Heating and Cooling, Faster House, and by Zwickle Light. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane, coming live from the Centene Community Ice Center, is next here on 101 ESPN.